In every city, in every town, dorpi, kasi, village and hamlet, from the highways to the byways, from the hinterland to the heartland. Good morning to you. Welcome to today's edition of The Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Before we set off, here are some of the milestones that you will be looking out for along our 3-hour journey this morning. So we start with this story. Businesses and jobs in several key industries that export products to the United States are in peril. This as the U.S.'s long-threatened punitive tariffs against countries, including our own, are set to now kick in on the 1st of August unless a last-minute deal is struck. South Africa has been among the first 14 countries that have been put on notice by the U.S. President Donald Trump that a 30% tariff on any and all South African goods entering the U.S. market will kick in at the beginning of next month. So a framework trade deal proposed and presented by our government's delegation back in May, and our vociferous protestations that the tariffs that we charge on U.S. goods entering our market are actually not as high as the U.S. president perceives them to be. All of that falling on deaf ears. For example, South Africa had said that, on average, our tariff is about 7.6%, and that 77% of all goods from the U.S. coming into our country actually face no tariff at all. None of that worked. So we'll explore the full implications and possible pathways out of this brewing crisis when we speak to Professor Raymond Parsons, who is from the business school at the University of the Northwest. That conversation is coming up at the top of 7 o'clock because it really is of that much import. The consequences are far-reaching in our economy. So Professor Parsons will help us make sense of it all at the top of 7. Our country's prisons are bursting at the seams with a combined inmate population of some 166,000. 166,000, and I say combined because it includes both sentenced and awaiting trial prisoners. Within that population, two groups are currently receiving much attention as solutions are sought to the overcrowding problem. The one group, inmates who are foreign nationals, and we are told there's about 24,000 of them, whose detention is said to be costing the state some 11 million rand a day. 11 million rand a day, incarcerating some 24,000 inmates who are foreign nationals. So, scanning around for solutions, some of the authorities are proposing amending our laws to allow for prisoner exchanges with their countries of origin. Would that work? We'll explore that. The second group of inmates receiving attention is awaiting trial detainees, many of them in cells because they simply can't afford bail amounts that are as low as below 1,000 rand. Could we see a bail fund coming to the aid of these inmates, and what would that look like? At about 6:45 this morning, we'll hear from Khomotso Ramolobeng, who is the chairperson of Parliament's Correctional Services Portfolio Committee. That conversation will unpack all of those themes. And lastly, let me highlight this story. South Africa's leading medical aid schemes are under the spotlight, facing allegations, in fact, findings in a report that was commissioned back in 2019 to investigate allegations of racial profiling in medical fraud investigations. Well, that report has now been delivered by Advocate Thembeka Ngcukaitobi and delivered to Minister Aaron Motsoaledi. And it has basically found and confirmed widespread racial discrimination against black healthcare professionals. Well, the minister says he's not surprised by it all, but the Board of Healthcare Funders have fiercely rejected the report. So we'll be speaking to Dr. Katlego Motudi, who is the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders, just for their perspective on that story. The full bench of the Morning Brief team is ready, able, and willing to serve you with all of your essential updates throughout the morning. And Musa has your news updates. Rob Byrne has got your traffic covered. Zaikan is the woman with the plan when it comes to your sport, and she will tell you about Chelsea making it to the finals. Woo-woo! Melissa Puta completing your picture with the morning brief in brief, and that's coming up in a short while. You can count on Dauleng Lechela being right on the money, because she always is, and Mo Africa Sipomantula with your roundup of news around the continent. Your calls 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. We've got lots of ground to cover, folks, so let's get started this morning.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
Let's get it started with Melissa Puta's morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. We're talking finances first. First up, finances. Local government, crucial in terms of the delivery system of our country, but the Minister of Finance has some tough words about monies that may be withheld. Tell me what that is all about.
Morning, Thulasizwe. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwane plans to withhold millions in grants from 39 municipalities across 6 provinces due to unpaid debts totaling billions, including nearly 18 billion rand owed to water boards, unless the municipalities provide proof of funds by July 7th. Grant funds will be released in phases strictly for debt repayment. Failure to comply may lead to Parliament approving a full funding suspension for 2025 and 2026 year, enforcing financial accountability under the Constitution and Municipal Finance Management Act.
So it's that spiraling crisis of debts by municipalities to water boards, which we were told is beginning to threaten the livelihood of those water boards. Tell me, while we're talking local government and financing and monies flowing, what's the story with this taxi rank in Duduza?
This is quite an interesting one. A 17 million rand taxi rank built by the city of Ekurhuleni in Duduza has remained unused since opening in April. The taxi operators claim that they were not consulted, while residents say the rank is unnecessary, citing greater need for shops and banks. The municipality insists, however, that consultation did happen through its development plan. Operators prefer the old informal rank, saying the new site is inconvenient and may cause loss of commuters and inter-association conflicts. The city accuses the Nigel Taxi Association of dishonesty after a year of engagement with them.
That's an interesting one, right? I mean, do you listen to the people and follow what they want in terms of infrastructure, or do you build and plan around what makes sense in terms of your spatial planning? Let's talk about what the call is from the South African Human Rights Commission in light of these explosive claims that have been made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
So the SAHRC has urged President Cyril Ramaphosa to establish a commission of inquiry into police interference following KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations. Mkhwanazi, as we know, accused Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibia of sabotaging the KZN Political Killings Task Team for personal gain and covering up high-profile investigations. Ramaphosa has pledged to personally address this issue. So it's one that we should watch closely, because quite a lot, is expected to unfold in this regard.
Absolutely. Lots of calls being made for the president to act swiftly, that these are the types of allegations that can't be allowed to linger for too long. That's Melissa Puta there, completing your picture this morning with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane. on SAFM.
On the weather front, here's how it's looking. I've got one warning for you coming through from the South African Weather Service. It's a yellow level 1 warning. It says damaging winds leading to localized difficulty in navigation of small vessels and disruption of small harbors and ports. Those conditions are expected along the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal between Kosi Bay and Richards Bay. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 19. Johannesburg fine 5 to 17. Mbombela fine 8 to 19. Polokwane fine 6 to 19. Mahikeng fine 4 to 19. Bloemfontein fine -1 to 17. Kimberley will be fine and windy 1 to 19. Uppington fine and windy 5 to 22. Cape Town will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain 12 to 16. George will be fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 23. Gqeberha will be fine 3 to 27. East London will be fine with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 26. Durban will be fine 11 to 23. Richards Bay fine 13 to 26. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will be fine with a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 23.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Afghanistan's healthcare system is collapsing. Countless young lives hang in the balance. Since 2020, Boost Hospital in Helmand Province has seen the number of children under 5 needing emergency care more than double, reflecting a national crisis. Across the country, hospitals are under crushing pressure as the number of critically ill children rises. With foreign aid suspended and more than 400 health facilities closed, millions of Afghans have been left without basic medical care. So it's a story that, is brewing in the background with not much focus these days being on Afghanistan. But let's turn the spotlight on that story. I'm joined by Dr. Humayun Hemmat, who is with Doctors Without Borders, a Deputy Medical Coordinator for Afghanistan. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. MSF gives a truly astounding picture and a figure that depicts a rapid rise in the number of children presenting, particularly for ER consultation at Boost Hospital. Paint the picture for us. How dramatic and drastic has this growth been since 2020?
Thanks for giving me this chance. It's a pleasure to talk about the challenges or problems, I can say, here in Afghanistan. If Afghanistan is affected by conflict since decades, and it's a chronic issue in our country, the lack of resources and the conflict since many years, which is now we are in after conflict period. We are working in 7 provinces in the country, and in Herat and Boost Hospital we are working, especially in Boost Hospital we are working since more than 10 years there. It's not only Boost Hospital that we see the increased number of children coming to us, but in all other places where we work, the number of cases increasing from a year to another. For many reasons, because still the access for patient is an issue, and with the recent cut of fund is deteriorate the situation with the closure of more than 430 health facility in different provinces. And as MSF is working since many years in Boost Hospital, that's why now MSF be familiar with good quality and free care, and people now got the knowledge that this care is available with good quality and free of charge. That's why this is another factor to increase number of patients in our hospital.
So, Doc, in terms of the numbers just cited by MSF, Doctors Without Borders, you talk about the numbers jumping from 53,923 ER consultations at Boost Hospital alone in 2020 to 122,335 in 2024. It leads me to this question about these being ER consultations. Is that significant that they are ER as opposed to general ward consultations? Is it because children are getting into traumatic and trauma situations, or have these numbers always existed? It's just that now they're being channeled to the fewer hospitals.
In general word, if you look to the trend, the number of cases increasing, as I said, from a year to another. Since 2021, after these changes, the peace is more or less okay. The people can freely move from a place to another, and there is no war since these political changes. But still, this can translate to the increasing number of ER in our facility. And again, as I mentioned before, MSF now be familiar or known for good quality of care, free of charge care, and availability of experts from various countries and various experience knowledge is also attractive factors that the people are now trying to reach to those hospitals. For sure, in the other surrounding facility, there are some sort of issues like lack of medication, lack of human resources, and not having, in some facility, not having 24/7 health services. So why people are now rushing to the biggest hospital. With the conflict, with trauma, now we have the big issue is the road traffic accident, but the trauma cases due to conflict, now there is no active conflict and we don't see any cases.
What's the picture in as far as the rest of the population is concerned, particularly if we can zoom in on women's health, given the kind of rules and laws that are in place under the Taliban government? What can you tell us about that demand and access by women to healthcare?
As MSF, we are providing medical care for both male and female. We have maternity in Boost Hospital. We have another private maternity in Host Province. In those two maternities, still, as I mentioned, the number is not decreasing, but either it's some months stable or even some months is getting increased. We have our staff, female staff is half of our staff, they are female staff. Medically speaking, there is not that much restriction on the female working in the hospital and receiving medical care. For sure, the mahram issues, the male guardians is an issue accessing to medical care. This is, I can say this can be not a big factor, but the big factors are either economical crisis, that people don't have transportation to reach to the facility, and the other issue is the access, lack of health services, good quality of medical care. Is these two are the biggest factors affecting access to the medical care for both gender, male and female. For sure, in our country, it's used that male to have consultation with male doctor and female to have consultation with female doctor. With the education ban on female, recently there is less effect but in the coming years, if the situation continue like as it is, it will be a biggest impact on accessing female to the medical care. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you have. Lastly, then, tell me about the response to this crisis, because it sounds to me as if it's really been triggered and accelerated by a withdrawal of international aid. What's been the response from the Taliban government, and is there an appreciation of the scale of the crisis?
I hope I understood your question. I mean, if we look to the response to recent crisis, if I can say economical crisis, I mean, as MSF, we try to work close to the community and close with the Ministry of Public Health. We expand some of our activity. For example, in the north of the country, we start supporting a pediatric ward of Mazar Regional Hospital, and we started nutrition activity in Kandahar province. And in some other location where we already work, we also try to adapt our activity in order to facilitate access to the medical care. But for sure, I mean, the resources is lacking in the country, and the situation, if I can say, the health situation is deteriorating from a day to another because of the ban of fund from either from US or from I can say fatigue from the donors is also an issue.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Dr. Humayun Hamad, who is from Doctors Without Borders, where he's Deputy Medical Coordinator for Afghanistan. I tell you what, let's do things slightly differently. We'll have an update from Zai in just a moment, but let's check in with N. Musa with news headlines.
Good morning. In the headlines, National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza has confirmed she's considering a course of action following KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations. In a media briefing, Mkhwanazi made damning allegations against senior police officials. Correctional services officials have confiscated contraband, including drugs and cell phones, during a raid at the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Centre in Pretoria last night. And community policing forums from across the Cape Flats are expected to meet in Lentegeur later today to discuss solutions to the escalating shooting incidents in the area. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Stationary vehicle M1 South around Olifantsfontein this morning, so just a bit of a bottleneck building up as you come through from the old Joburg exit down through Samrand and towards that obstruction. Mike 1's pretty heavy. Boyson's through to around Empire Road. And if you're coming out of Soweto, you may want to elect to avoid the N17 this morning. Big queues from Soweto Circle up towards the N1 highway. Durban, no traffic lights at Mega City coming out of Umalazi, likely to be quite busy this morning. It's a really busy junction, that one. Truck crash between Balgowan and Nottingham Road on the N3 towards Moy River. Just one lane open. That scene is just past Balgowan. And Cape Town going to be stuck for what will seem a long time this morning on the N7, Jakes Kerville Drive. No traffic lights down at two major junctions. Jakes Kerville at the N2 and then Jakes Kerville at that big Epping junction by the fire station there, Jakes Kerville and Viking Way. So two queues already noticeable on our system. And if you're going south, as well as those two traffic lights, you've got the long-term roadworks as you come through Voortrekker Road to Viking to worry about as well. Also, Stellenbosch Arterial Road, very heavy backlogs this morning, about a 15-minute delay coming through Delft towards the Symphony Way junction on your way towards the airport. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Sai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you in your SAFM Sports. Let me just tell you, Thulas, what a win for the Proteas in the second test. 326 runs and in 3 days. This is meant to be a 5-day test in Bulawayo, but it appears that the Proteas just went all out and delivered an incredible performance. Now, let's go to the news that's making the rounds. SABC Sport can confirm that Orlando Pirates are in discussions with Monapula Soleng. That's going to be an interesting, acquisition for the club. We'll also bring you more Club World Cup action. Chelsea, that team, they beat Fluminense. They're into the final of the FIFA Club World Cup. And we go to the tennis action at Wimbledon. And it is, Carlos Alcaraz. He is through. And he did, of course, take down the Joburg-born Cameron Norrie at Wimbledon. So we'll bring you all of this and more in your sport coming up at the top of the hour.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Thank you, Zai. Let's go to Ndauling Lechela for the first update of the morning. Ndauling, good morning to you. We start with the usual, Trump tariffs. Tell me about this 50% tariff on copper.
Morning, Tula. So more sectorial tariffs coming through. That's as President Trump announced plans to impose a 50% tariff on copper imports to boost domestic production and support industries crucial for EVs, infrastructure, and defense. Now, this move is part of a broader effort to increase tariffs on various imported goods. Trump also proposed a potential 200% tariff on pharmaceutical imports, giving companies 12 to 18 months to shift production to the U.S. before the levy takes effect. Now, the copper tariff aims to bring copper home, in the words of Trump, and aligns with existing 50% duties on steel and aluminium imports. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick expects the copper tariff to be in place by the end of July. The tariffs could lead, of course, to increased costs for industries reliant on copper, potentially affecting consumer prices and economic growth.
So just to give an example then, Dowling, because Trump says the current tariffs announced that will kick in on the 1st of August are over and above the sectoral tariffs.
Yes.
So if you were South Africa, I don't know if we export copper at all. I know Zambia probably does.
Yes.
So if you were Zambia and you were facing, I don't know what they're facing on the 1st of August or whenever, say 30%, this 50% would be over and above that 30%. So it would be 80%.
Yes. It would be 80%. So not just the 30%. Yes, in addition.
It's rough. Let's talk company news. Tell me about Spar and their partnership with Uber.
So they are ramping up their online efforts. The retailer has partnered up with Uber Eats to enhance its online delivery capabilities and stay competitive in the rapidly growing market. The partnership will initially cover 150 Spar, Topset Spar and Quick Spar stores, with plans to expand to 400 stores by the end of the year. Customers will be able to order groceries and liquor via the Spar to You app on the Uber Eats platform, with fulfillment handled by Uber's nationwide driver network. The initial focus is on grocery and liquor deliveries, with plans to include products from Spar Pharmacy and build it in later phases. The local grocery delivery market is projected to generate 24 billion rands in revenue in 2025, with user penetration expected to reach 9.8%. Now, Spar's move is part of a larger trend in the retail industry, where competitors like ShopRite, Pick n Pay, and Woolworths are also investing heavily in their online delivery capabilities.
Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
So reflecting on markets action, U.S. stocks closed mixed as traders digested recent tariff developments, with copper under the spotlight. The Dow Jones taking a knock down almost 0.4% overnight. Then back at home, the JSE and the Rand proving to be resilient despite the recent tariff on SA products. Mixed showing from the JSE, with the all share dipping 0.1%, but the Financial 15 up 0.5%. The Rand in the meantime remaining stable at 17.78 to the dollar this morning. Lastly, in Asia, trade choppy, with investors in that region concerned about the economic impact of tariffs on Japan and South Korea.
All right, thank you for that, Ndauling. We'll catch up with you in the second hour of the show.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. We also talking United States right at the start. Tell me about these the leaders of these 5 West African countries traveling to the United States. What's that about?
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa to your listeners. Thulas, you'll recall in June, Trump spoke about this mini summit of African countries and the issue that you have been talking about, this global traffic of tariffs, which are called from aid to investment now. Now, this mini summit begins today, Thulas, until on Friday. And you look at the countries that have been chosen, and you'll see the absence of the key countries like West Africa, Abuja, Southern Africa, Swan will have been there, South Africa. But this meeting, I mean, US, Thulas, it is using the word commercial opportunities. But we know, Thulas, it's all about minerals. They are talking about regional security and post-conflict cooperation. These are the key issues that will come out. But like I have said, Thulas, this is a precursor before the US-Africa summit. But while these 5 countries have been chosen, others are saying Trump avoids to have complex countries to engage with. He rather go to your Senegal, Mauritania. He goes to countries that he can manage them, you know, Thulas, if one can say. Liberia, it is one of those countries. Gabon, I see they are part of that countries that have been invited in this mini summit. But we have said it before, Thulas, Africa must start to invest in its continent rather than this US summit, France summit, Russia-Africa summit. I think, Thulas, we need to get deeper to say what is in this summit that brings development in the African continent.
And I see that Ghana is dealing with a problem that we have. Here at home, we say Zama-Zamas. In Ghana, they say Galamsey. What is President John Dramani Mahama doing about that situation?
Thulas, the president has just set up what we call a special task force to deal with illegal gold mining and smuggling outside West Africa. And he has raised this because, Thulas, he says that this signals the state of him to be decisive. And this is, this task force, it is made out of, security personnel, the military, and they will be empowered, Thulas, to arrest and detain suspects. And this follows from what came out actually from the Ghana Gold Board Agency, Thulas, early this year, about this illegal gold mining transaction that doesn't benefit Ghana. And as you have said that way, Thulas, in South Africa we call it Zama-Zama, in Ghana they call it Galamsey.
And then tell me about news coming out of South Sudan in Juba. That tenure of the army chief didn't really last that long, did it?
No, Thulas, it did not. You know, being appointed in December and in July, you have been fired by Salva Kiir. It was only for 7 months, and here we are talking about Paul Nang Majoko, who was expelled, Thulas, if one can say that word, by Salva Kiir, and replacing him with Dawu Ajong as the chief. As the army chief. But this has been raging, Thulas, because of the conflict with what they say between the army, the government of the South Sudan and the White Army, which is the ethnic militia group of the Nur youth who are triggering what they call political crisis in the South Sudan. Also the arrest of Riek Machar. But no reasons, Thulas, were given particular to say, why do you expel the army chief, considering what is happening currently in the South Sudan?
Lastly, Sipho, your historical archive touches on 2 issues of significance that happened on the 9th of July, the first one in 2002, the second one in 2011. Tell me about those.
Thulas, I would want to talk about the South Sudan, which is turning 14 years today. I was part of that mission to separate the South from the North, but nothing to celebrate today. It's 14 years of the independence in the South Sudan, the capital city, Juba. But what is it that we can celebrate, Thulas, that was 2011. And now, today, also 23 years ago, Thulas, in 2002, if you are a listener living in eThekwini, you will recall what I call the reconfiguration of the Organization of African Unity to the African Union under President Thabo Mbeki. You recall people like Amara Ace, who have just passed on to us. Those were the people who were part of the from OAU to AU. And somebody makes the joke to like say, what is the difference between OAU and AU now? Is that in the AU there's no O anymore, meaning there's no organization. But in the AU, it's heads of state to heads of state. So it's a team of leaders. It's no longer organization of African unity.
Wow.
They are organizing. They are not organized. They just agonize. As I said, what's the difference? AU or AU?
I've never heard that one, Sipho.
Asante leading the conversation, SFM observing the International Mandela Month and as well as the South Sudan Day and the African Union Day.
Yeah, Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update and sharing that quip that I've never heard before about the Organization of African Union. Drop the O and you are left with just African Union.
The Congolese have a huge mission to silence the hosts, but the Atlas Lionesses are not shaken. They are confident they will keep the people of Morocco happy. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the exciting contest between Democratic Republic of Congo and Morocco this Wednesday, 9 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's turn to this now. That story that I flagged earlier on. The chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Khomotso Ramolobeng, voicing serious concerns over the financial and operational strain on the country's correctional facilities. Speaking at a recent media briefing, Ramolobeng has highlighted two major challenges: the high number of foreign nationals in the prison system and overcrowding driven by remand detainees unable to afford low bail amounts. The committee has called for urgent reforms, strengthened interdepartmental collaboration and better resource allocation to ensure a more just and efficient correctional system. Khomotso Ramolobeng, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So there are two aspects I'd like us to talk to each one of them separately. Let's start with the prison population in general, overcrowding, but also address the element of foreign nationals who are held in detention in the various facilities in our country. How much does the number of foreign nationals held in our country exacerbate the overcrowding situation?
Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to the listeners at home. And once again, thank you for having me on the show. The current number of inmate population across all facilities, it's around 161,000. And a huge chunk of that, I think around 60,000, it's remand detainees. So around 101,000 becomes those who are sentenced to serve their sentences in correctional facilities. And out of that number, 25,854 is foreign nationals, and 13,000 of that 25,000 are those who are currently sentenced to serve their sentence, and 12,000 of those are those who are still awaiting trial, as we refer to them as remand detainees.
So, in terms of the strain on the resources of the Department of Correctional Services, what does that look like from those numbers that you've given?
Look, what the department spends a day on an inmate, it's around 470 to 480 a day. Either you are a remand detainee or you are sentenced. That cuts across, and which takes us to around 13,000 something range, or 14 a month for that particular inmate to serve in the correctional facility. So you have an influx of those who are remand detainees who are waiting trial for more than a year or 2 years, whom you do not know whether they are still expected to set foot or see their day in court, which justice, the judicial system needs to assist us, magistrates and judges, whether are those people still need to be trialed? And if not, they need to assist to ease the pressure of the department with overcrowding. Issues of foreign nationals. The department has adhered to our call as the portfolio committee to review a section of 73, subsection A, B, which speaks to the length and form of the sentence, and this will allow the department to enter into inter-inmate exchange with other countries so that those who are foreign nationals incarcerated in our facilities who are serving a sentence, and those around 13,000, can go serve or finalize their sentences in their countries of origin. So what the department has now done, it's going to review the whole Correctional Service Act, 1 of 1998, and that will allow now an input from civil society organizations, NPOs and NGOs, who air their views and inputs on that act. But our interest, particularly as the portfolio committee, is that section 73, because right now, if you are incarcerated in a correctional facility, the department will not be able to allow you to be deported up until you serve your sentence. So they're binded by that act. Hence, we need to amend it or strengthen it so that it allows that deportation process once Home Affairs has finalized it. And you must remember, Thulas, that if a foreign national, the minister has given, I think, parole to about 5 foreign nationals, or those who are serving their sentences, if they come to end, they finish serving their sentences, they can't be released, especially if they're illegal foreigners in the country. Home Affairs must then start a process of deporting them back to their country. Then that's how they get to be released. So we want to amend that section to make it easy when an inter-inmate exchange between the Department of Correctional Services and other counterparts of correctional or justice systems in other countries, when that program has been developed between Home Affairs, Department of Correctional Services and International Relations, it becomes easy for the department to adhere to that deportation process.
The other aspect that's adding, the way I understand your comments in the last few days, that's adding to the crisis of overcrowding is the issue of inmates who are awaiting trial detainees. That's seriously problematic because these are people whose guilt or innocence has not yet been determined, but in many cases they languish in a jail cell for months, if not years, while awaiting trial. How deep is the problem and what solutions are you looking at?
It is based on the numbers that we received from the department when it appeared before us. It gave us around 19,000 referrals under the 63A and 49Gs, which mostly are those affected by awaiting trial for more than a year to 2 years. And the success rate of those referrals becomes around 3%. So that's the frustration that the department faces on those awaiting trial for more than a year and 2 years, and nothing happens to them, whilst they're still remanded in correctional facilities, and the department needs to play its role whilst they're remanded in correctional facilities. But what we have done as the portfolio committee, because we can't every time when we call the department, we listen to them, raise frustrations, but with no suitable solutions to them. So what we've done, we've written to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development to appear before the portfolio committee with the department she's leading, so that they can be able to take us through those referrals that the department has made to the justice system and how the department intends to assist the Department of Correctional Services to mitigate this crisis of overcrowding. But whilst you deal with the core matters of those awaiting trial for more than a year and 2 years, whether is it a fair process to them or not, and if they are still expected.
Very quickly, I'm out of time, Chairperson, but there's something I really think you should talk to, the issue of a pilot bail fund. How would that look like? How would that look, and how would it address this issue of people who remain in prison simply because they can't afford bail amounts that are less than 1,000 rand?
We refer to those who have petty crimes, who have bail less than 300 rands or less than 500 rands. There is a bail pilot project that jigs under the stewardship of Judge Edwin Cameron, who have introduced this bail fund to be able to, it's an aid to be able to assist those who can afford bail, to ease the pressure of overcrowding. And we're looking at around 2,500 inmates, and majority of those are juveniles, as we have seen them in Polsmo Correctional Facility. So it will assist. Obviously, there are prerequisites to them or requirements that not those who are arrested for gender-based violence will qualify, or for murder or any serious crime, but it will be your petty little crimes that it might be drug abuse, substance, or it might be shoplifting. So it will ease. But the person who will unpack further for you would be Judge Cameron on how the pilot project is going.
Thank you for that. That's Khomotso Ramolobeng, who is chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Mike 1 up through Joburg, pretty heavy this morning, queuing up from Boyson's Road right through to about Oxford Road in the Parktown area. So behind that, the M2 coming through from Joe Slovo Drive into Crown to join that congested. Mike 1 is congested itself. The N3 going north, pretty heavy. Looks like an issue inside Galuli's interchange. So again, coming up from the Elands interchange up to Galuli's and onto that link out to the airport of Boksburg, very slow. And a crash on the M1 after 14th Avenue, causing a backlog for motorists coming out of Soweto on your way to Rand. Breakdown N1 south at Olifantsfontein Road. Heavy traffic all the way back to Old Johannesburg Road. The alternative R101, the Old Joburg Road, is pretty heavily back. So you've got two big corridors coming through Centurion into Midrand, and they are both fully loaded up today. Durban, no traffic lights leaving Umlazi at the Mangosuthu Highway, the Mega City Junction. So just expect some delays. That's a pretty busy junction this time of morning. Cliffdale looks all right. No breakdowns at this stage. Wasn't that a terrible afternoon and early evening yesterday trying to get around that truck and crashed in at Cliffdale? Wow. Also a crash recovery underway between Balgowan and Nottingham Road. Now if you're north of Howick on your way to Moy River, there is quite a significant backlog into that particular scene. The crash is just past the Balgowan exit, and Cape Town, some really big traffic lights out this morning. N7 Jakes Kerville at the N2, so that's already got you queuing up coming up from Vangate Mall. N7 Jakes Kerville at Viking Way, right in the heart of Epping. There's traffic all over that particular junction without lights. And Symphony Way and Stellenbosch Arterial, a busy route in Cape Town's Delft area. Those lights out. Stellenbosch Arterial queuing quite heavily as you arrive from the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
My name's Kaylin Swart, goalkeeper for Banyana. Between the 3 meals of the day, my favorite is breakfast. I always have eggs. Eggs is my superpower. In the house setup, my favorite place is the chill room. I'm always in front of the TV watching something. That's only because I get so little downtime. I just want to relax on the couch and watch TV, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, you name it. We are the African champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
4 minutes to 7 on this Wednesday, Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge has come out swinging in his own defense before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, hearing sexual harassment allegations leveled against him by Judge's Secretary Andiswa Mengo. Mbenenge has told the tribunal that an incident that Mengo alleges happened in Mbenenge's chambers in the High Court in Mthatha simply did not happen and is a fabrication aimed at bolstering Mengo's allegations of sexual harassment. SABC News reporter Kenny Mapanga has been watching that story and joins us now for an update. Kenny, let's start with that incident. It's one of the more notorious and sordid episodes in these allegations leveled at the judge, and he's come out to say it just didn't happen.
Indeed. We heard a series of denials from the top judge yesterday regarding the allegations faced against him. But of course, Thulas, this incident that you're referring to is quite crucial, because if it were proven to be true, then that complainant would win this particular case of sexual harassment. There is that incident of the chambers where it is alleged that he solicited allegedly an act of a sexual nature from the judge's secretary. He vehemently denies that, and he's gone through quite a plethora of what he calls his evidence, because at some point Thulasizwe was leading himself in defending that particular claim. And he went through a series of evidence where he said that his tracker report should have been looked at, the register should have been interrogated further prior to bringing an allegation of this nature to the tribunal, which he says had no weight and is not true. He calls it false and malicious, and says that it was designed to shame him, or rather meant to shame him. So he has wrapped up his particular evidence, and now we're in the realm of cross-examination by evidence leader, Advocate Simelane. She carefully starts out by pointing out this notion of the judge-president painting himself as someone who has respect for women. She raises the fact that of how he addressed her in performing her task before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. And she goes on to highlight that she will prove that in terms of the JSC Act and what is required from her, from the tribunal, that she has been consistent and in line with those requirements. This question of respect, she takes it further. She goes on to bring up his marital status. Now, she doesn't do this out of a morality question, but she does it emanating from his testimony that he says that he was interested in relating to Judge Secretary Andisa Mengo, and he wanted to pursue a romantic relationship with her. Now, the question becomes, in what capacity could he pursue a romantic relationship with her if he is already married? Now, evidence leader Advocate Simelane puts it to him that he was interested, allegedly, in having a sexual relationship with her, which then brings up the themes of objectification and others, which is common in cases of this nature. So we expect for her to drive this point further this morning when it begins at 9 a.m. with the text messages, because we've already seen him deny the meaning of some of those emojis, especially in cases where it becomes difficult to comprehend how the meaning could change, such as the half-peeled banana. He said that he was talking about the fruit and how couples can, play with the banana. But we've heard from previous evidence that it was identified to have a sexual connotation. And the context in which we see it in the conversations is in a sensual, sexual conversation. So we expect that Advocate Skeepers is going to cross-examine him further on these issues, because it's not becoming clear what the intention was with those particular messages, because he has now painted it as something that is mutually consensual, that it was flirtatious, it was playful, but we know for Andisa Mengo that was not the experience that she had. So it's going to be quite a long day today, as cross-examination will really go into its deep meaning today, because it was only an hour yesterday with Skeepers, but we expect for her to start from 9 a.m. this morning with the more intensive questions. But she has laid the foundation of how it could be improbable for his version to be accepted. All
right, Kenny, thank you for that. That's Kenny Mapanga. Look out for more of her reporting throughout the day here on SABC News. On SABC News and other channels, other platforms of the SABC. Let's go straight to Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, Didiza considering course of action amid Mkhwanazi allegations, and Cape Flats community policing forums unite against escalating violence. Good morning. National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza has confirmed she's considering a course of action following KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations. In a media briefing on Sunday, Mkhwanazi made damning allegations against senior police officials. He alleged Police Minister Senzo Mchunu interfered in crime-fighting operations and had links to a criminal syndicate. Didiza says her office has received communication from political parties following Mkhwanazi's allegations. Parliament spokesperson Muloto Mutapo.
2 letters have since been received by the Office of the Speaker from political parties requesting a snap debate on the issues raised by General Mkhwanazi in accordance with the rules of the National Assembly. In addition, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police in the National Assembly has written to the Speaker seeking guidance on how the committee should address these matters as they fall within its oversight responsibilities. The Speaker is indeed currently considering all these matters. An appropriate decision will be made.
Correctional services officials have confiscated contraband including drugs and cell phones during a raid at the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Centre in Pretoria. Correctional Services National Commissioner Samuel Tobagale led the raid last night. The Correctional Services Department says the raid is part of a broader campaign to rid its centres of criminal networks. This includes preventing the smuggling of contraband to inmates in the department's facilities across the country. Kgosi Mampuru has more than 7,000 inmates. Patricia Fasache reports.
It's really the drugs that was confiscated and a lot of cell phones. There's one cell that we went into. One of the inmates seemed to have crafted a panel in one of the beds, and in that panel they found several cell phones that were actually hidden in there. So that was also very shocking for the Commissioner.
Community policing forums from areas across the Cape Flats are today expected to meet in Lentegeur to discuss solutions to the escalating shooting incidents in the area. In the past week, at least 10 people have been gunned down in the area. Police have also seized firearms and arrested several people in the gang-hit townships of the Cape Flats. CPFs from areas like Kailicha, Mitchell's Plain, Elsie's River, Mfuleni, Menenberg and Nyanga are set to meet senior police management. EFF Deputy President Godrich Gadi says the late former Deputy President David Mabuza was a man of integrity. Mabuza died on Thursday last week at the age of 64. Gadi says he grew up in the same village as Mabuza. The EFF leader was among the politicians that visited the bereaved family in Barberton, Mpumalanga yesterday.
We have known the Deputy President for the longest time, and some of us in our private space since 1984-85. We have lived a good life with him in good and bad times, and we can tell you that he was a man of peace, a man of unity, a man who was committed to the liberation of his people in South Africa. He will go the extra mile. He will be known for having loved education and assisted quite a number of people in the education sector to achieve degrees. And I spent a lot of time in his home where his parents were and his
Night shelters in Cape Town are reporting being overstretched. This as many people seek accommodation following the inclement weather of the past few weeks. Heavy rains and extreme cold have affected thousands of people in the city. The Elim Night Shelter in Elsie's River on the Cape Flats says it has been forced to turn some people away. Shafiq Otal is the manager.
So we have a lot of people coming to our gates or being referred to by other institutions. We find it difficult because we have only limited bed space, whereas our male bed terms are full, which normally it is not. And also increases our expenditure on food-wise and people coming to our gate, people coming for blankets. We also want to assist them all, but we've run out of all these things that we can assist them with. And we have to turn people away.
Recapping the top story, National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza has confirmed she's considering a course of action following the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations. He alleged the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu interfered in crime-fighting operations and had links to a criminal syndicate. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Just phone Outsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that 321 like I did, you might get a 500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
How is it that Outsurance provided the solution for you?
918 Rand is what I'm saving.
Incredible. What brought you and Outsurance together?
718 Rand. I end up saving.
They gave you the real deal.
It literally is the real deal.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket. The Proteas sweep Zimbabwe with an innings and a 236-run victory. And in tennis at Wimbledon, Carlos Alcaraz is blazing into the semi-finals with a straight sets win over Cameron Norrie. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Very heavy backlogs on the run through Midrand. A stationary vehicle at Olifantsfontein has the highway parked all the way back through almost to Brockfontein interchange. The side road, the R101 from the N1 exit all the way down through to Olifantsfontein's heavy as well. So your two big routes going south through Midrand are heavily backed up. Big pressure on the N3 from Elands interchange up to the exit to the N12 east at Giluli's interchange. Mike 1 Boyson's through Parktown is heavy, and a crash on the N1 north after 14th Avenue causing delays coming up from Soweto on your way to Randburg this morning. Also crash on the N12 westbound at Pitfontein, just holding up traffic arriving from Davyton. Durban, a collision this morning on the N2 north before Umgena Road in the sort of roadworks there between Westwood Mall and Umgena Road, so very heavy. Extra delays getting up the N2 from the M7. Roadworks on the M4 Southern Freeway coming through around about the M7 highway, so Umbilo territory. That's quite slow on your way to Durban. And truck crash recovery north of Howick, just north of Balgowan on your way to Moy River, causing quite a backlog as well. Cape Town, no traffic lights. Stellenbosch Arterial at Symphony Way, that's quite slow moving through Delft. And the other big one is the N7 Jake Skirville at Viking Way in the heart of Epping. No lights there, delays all approaches. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7. Welcome to the second hour of the Morning Brief on this Wednesday. It is great to be in your company. Let me very quickly tell you what's coming up so we can get started. The first conversation we will have is with Professor Raymond Parsons. We'll be reflecting on the announcement by the U.S. President Donald Trump that a 30% tariff will apply to all imports into the United States, so exports from South Africa going into the United States market, and that will start applying from the 1st of August 2025. Basically, the U.S. president saying that the trade relationship between South Africa and the United States has not been reciprocal, and therefore he is seeking to sort of balance that situation and protect American industry. And therefore, this 30% will apply on all exports to the United States. The implications are quite significant. South Africa had put on the table in May quite a number of proposals. They included importing liquefied natural gas from the United States and, locking that in for about 10 years, and the U.S. being able to set up infrastructure for LNG in this country. But that did not seem to move the United States president. So Professor Raymond Parsons will talk to me about that, as well as the potential implications when that finally happens, that tariff increase. Then we focus on issues of justice. We'll be talking to the Minister of Justice, Mamulu Gugubai, in part talking about the moves towards the full institutional independence of the judiciary, which has been an ongoing project, that we must reach a stage where the judiciary is fully independent in terms of managing its affairs, its budgets, and appointments and things like those. The minister will be on standby to talk to me about that, and that conversation coming up at about 20 past 7. Lastly, let me tell you that conversation again with Dr. Katlego Motudi, the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders. Will be responding to the findings of what is known as a Section 59 panel report, which confirmed widespread racial discrimination against black healthcare professionals in that sector. Your calls, you are part of the conversation. Call me on 086 000 2032. Please send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. And they don't have to be confined to these topics that we have covered and will cover within this hour. You can, of course, raise other issues that may be exercising your mind this morning. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get the second hour of the morning brief underway.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Herman Mashaba's response is so interesting, and he said, John, when I was the mayor of the city of Joburg, I fired 3 DA Mako members for corruption. The party kept them as councillors. South Africa is not going to succeed in fighting corruption for as long as we apply double standards. Corruption is
no such
corruption.
thing. The whole country knows Ashraf. You can't trust anything Herman Mashaba says. One day, he's a flip-flopper of plastic notes. If there's one politician in this country who's renowned for being a flip-flopper, who's unable to stay true to any public comment without changing it the next second, it is Herman Mashaba.
Karabo Khawkhaw, the DA national spokesperson.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter of on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's start with that conversation about the tariffs that are set to kick in on the 1st of August. U.S. President Donald Trump announcing a 30% blanket tariff on all South African imports into that country, and that will be effective, as I say, on the 1st of August, unless significant trade concessions are made. The announcement made via Trump's Truth Social account and in a letter addressed to President Cyril Ramaphosa forms part of a broader wave of protectionist moves targeting several countries, including Japan, Malaysia, and South Korea. So let's speak to Professor Raymond Parsons, who is economist at the business school at the Northwest University. Prof, good morning. Thank you for your time. So when Trump announced this in April, that he would be imposing this raft of tariffs against multiple countries, including our own, he gave a 90-day pause within which there were to be negotiations. Our understanding is that there were proposals that were put by the South African delegation in the United States. So it would seem that he was not particularly enthused about those proposals. Tell me what has brought us to this point where it seems now inevitable that this 30% tariff increase will kick in on the 1st of August.
Yes, good morning to you. Of course, with someone like President Trump, nothing is inevitable because there's always a high degree of unpredictability in his decisions and in his announcements. I think the important point we need to see at this stage is to see the perspective in the last day or so since this announcement has been made, that all the various economists and the industry experts who have spoken on this have said 3 things. Firstly, this is obviously a serious challenge to the South African economy, and in particular sectors such as agriculture and, of course, the motor industry. And on a worst-case scenario, there will be an impact on our economy. Secondly, yes, we will survive. There are certain remedies and strategies which a small open economy like South Africa's can use or deploy in order to soften the outcome. And then thirdly, I think it's accepted there will still be some pain and uncertainty given the unpredictable nature of what we're dealing with at the moment from the United States. So I think the important point now is really what can we do in the short term and what should we be doing in the longer term in order to deal not only with the immediate situation, but the longer term structural changes that are obviously taking place in world trade as a result of the actual tariff policies, the actual rather aggressive tariff policies which are being followed by the United States. So it's what can we do between now and the 1st of August, and what should we be doing beyond the 1st of August?
What can we do, though, Prof? What scope is there for maneuver where South Africa argues that actually President Trump, when you say that these tariffs of 30% are reciprocal, that is not accurate, because on average, the imports into South Africa are charged a tariff of about 7.6%, and 77% of imports from the United States face no tariff at all. It doesn't seem to me like there's much room to maneuver unless you just drop the entire fence and say, absolutely zero tariffs on all imports from the United States. And also, just to add, Prof, in a context where we've already made these concessions, where we said, come, bring in your LNG infrastructure, we'll sign up for 10 years, and that has not enthused the U.S. president. So what more room to negotiate and maneuver still remains?
Well, I think, I really think, Simelane, there are two issues. The first is, of course, at root, there is a huge conceptual problem that President Trump is preoccupied with trade balances. And of course, we know that in the real world and what we've achieved in the world economy so far doesn't hinge on every country balancing its trade with everyone else. It's more important that you get trade where you have your strengths and your opportunities to do business with various other countries. The issue should be, what is fair trade? And I think that's the big issue, both for large countries and for small economies like South Africa. But that's where we are at the moment. I think we've got to see this as work in progress. It's called negotiation, and until we get to the 1st of August, we won't know whether any renewed offer, as has been indicated by government, that might engage the White House between now and the 1st of August. So I think both the Minister of Agriculture and other sectoral players have all indicated there's still an opportunity to see whether we can fend off a worst-case scenario on the 1st of August. But I think what's important is still our relationship with the U.S., and even in the letter from President Trump, he does say, I am imposing this tariff, but I still hope we can continue to foster good economic relations. So we've got to try and build on that. Right. But we've got to look at alternative markets. I think that's tremendously important. It's not going to be easy. But on our doorstep is the African Free Trade Agreement, which we need to give a lot more impetus. And at the end of the day, whatever alternative risks or opportunities we may have as a small open economy, we've got to ensure that if we want to exploit them and manage them successfully, we've got to be globally competitive. In other words, whatever the trade agreements, we've got to internally ensure that we run our economy to keep the costs of business down, and that we can ensure the maximum share of world trade and investment in order to support our growth and employment. So that is the big challenge that we now face between now, the 1st of August, and beyond the 1st of August.
All right, Prof. I've got to thank you for your time. The elements that are within our control in terms of how we run our own economy. That's Professor Raymond Parsons there, economist at the Business School at the Northwest University.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Botswana is in high spirits to stop the West Africans. However, the Super Falcons want to illustrate why they are 9-time African champions. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the superb clash between Botswana and Nigeria this Thursday, 10 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
Justice Minister Mamoloko Gupai's budget vote to be delivered in Parliament today will be watched closely for further details it may give on the work to finalize the judiciary's institutional independence from the executive, as well as unification of different components of the judicial arm of government. The minister's budget vote comes hot off the heels of President Cyril Ramaphosa affirming recently that a joint committee will work to end the anomaly of the judiciary, an arm of government meant to be on par with the legislature and executive, continuing to rely on the executive for administration of its budget, for example, and approvals of certain appointments. So let's speak to the minister ahead of the delivery of that budget. Minister Mamoloko Gupai, good morning to you and thank you for your time. How central a theme of your budget vote will this issue be of judicial institutional independence?
And good morning to your listeners. As we do today, we'll just highlight, it won't be really the central because I spoke about it in the last week's budget vote. So we do have two budget votes, the Office of the Chief Justice, which I delivered last week Tuesday. And in that budget, I did highlight the steps that we are going to do in implementing the decisions that have been taken and the announcement by the head of state. We will looking at completing that process, the preliminary process, which is a report that goes in terms of the time frames. That will be in August, submitted to both the judiciary and cabinet for approval, where it will outline the legislation that needs to be changed. For example, currently when you look at the Magistrate Act, you'd find that it makes reference to the minister instead of the Chief Justice. So such legislation will be changed so that we can see not only an independent judiciary but civil judiciary. So work is underway. The team is expected to do. We are working on a preliminary, or what we call interface, so that what we call the process, so that we're going towards the full implementation. So interim measures, interim measures. So we're already looking at the staff, we're already looking at the services that we can transfer to the Office of the Chief Justice while we're working and ensuring that we start giving those powers back to the judiciary.
Your assessment of the infrastructure that is essential to the administration of justice, how do you assess it? Many would say that our country's court system is crumbling, the case backlogs are ridiculous, and effectively mean that many people are deprived of the justice that they deserve. Just from an infrastructure perspective, how do you intend to address all of those issues?
Two angles to that. The first issue, which will be in today's budget, is around infrastructure development. Unfortunately, Thulasizwe, we are currently still in conversation with National Treasury, and we're hoping that that part will be responded to in medium term and next year. This is regarding to buildings, court buildings. People would remember, some of the people would know that some of the ceilings are falling and all that. So what has happened is that we've done an assessment, and for this financial year, we needed about 1.6 billion. We've been given 400 million. And you can imagine the difference in terms of what we need. And the Minister of Finance has argued several things. One, because it's implemented through public works. He says there's been delays, there's not been project management properly, and all those things. So he's asked us to put all those things together and in other mechanisms bring private-public partnerships so that we can be able to see that. So we will look into that. There's quite a number of courts that needs to be built from scratch in terms of capacity. If you look at various provinces, they'll tell you about access to justice, because people have to travel long distance to be able to access the court system. Not only that, the security features in the court system, where you find that the metal detectors or the scans that are supposed to be functional, some of them are old, needs to be replaced. We will do some this year. We are announcing some of the changes and improvements, but the budget as well is still limited. In terms of court backlog, what we have done working together with the Judicial, we've resuscitated a what we call a committee. This is a committee of everybody who's involved in the value chain, because when there's a delay in a court, it could be one reason from the other. Either a police officer, investigating officer has not prepared a docket properly, or an interpreter is not in court, or a legal aid person is not in court, or the magistrate, or anyone, or prosecutor. So what we are doing, we've got all the stakeholders around the table so that we start tracking, and we've started that in March, to check who is the contributor of a number of case backlogs so that that person can start looking into that. And I've been monitoring that, and that's why you can see some of the judge presidents are starting to introduce different mechanisms to be able to respond to that. The prosecutorial team as well is looking into that. I know the headline over the weekend was saying justice for sale, but these are petty crimes where they are saying, why do you clock the court for somebody who has stolen chocolate? You know it's going to be a fine. So shouldn't you arrange prior to it and just it becomes a settlement?
Minister, I've got to move on and ask you about issues that are in the environment at the moment that I believe you will not be able to, even if you wanted to avoid talking about. Among the organs of state mentioned by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as being complicit in the workings of what he calls a criminal syndicate are at least two types of organs of state with lines of accountability or institutional links to your department: prosecutors and members of the judiciary. Are you aware of those allegations, and what's your response to them? What have you made of them?
It would be good to get more details from General Mkhwanazi, but unfortunately, remember, the president has requested that all of us restrain ourselves, allow him to gather information and guide us, all of us as members of the executive. I did note what has been said, and we will be able to deal with that. Unfortunately, while this process is still going, I don't want to contaminate the process. I don't want to be seen acting out of line. Because when the president said all of us must be restrained, he meant that all of us who are actually involved in the process, who have a responsibility, and so that we allow him space to be able to deal with that. Otherwise, it's going to be accusations and counter-accusation, explanation. That can cause even more harm to the integrity of the state.
All right, Minister, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Minister Mamolo Gugubai, Minister of Justice, talking to us ahead of the delivery of the budget vote later on today.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning. Let's go to, this good news. Vian Mulder's record-breaking 367 not out, setting the tone as South Africa crushed Zimbabwe by an innings and 236 runs, sealing a 2-0 Test Series sweep in Bulawayo. The Proteas declared on 626 for 5 before bowling the hosts out twice with some ruthless efficiency. And speaking of ruthless efficiency in soccer news, we've got João Pedro scoring 2 stunning goals in his first start for Chelsea. They beat Fluminense 2-0 to reach the Club World Cup final. And in rugby news, Kwagga Smith says the Springboks are eager to sharpen their performance after their 42-24 win over Italy at Loftus Versfeld. Here's Kwagga Smith.
Yeah, definitely. We want to be the best team in the world, and I think you got to be honest with yourself. If you know you didn't play to your ability and you didn't play well, although you win by 18 points, it doesn't matter. It's all about your standards and making sure that you live up to that standard. So I think the honesty is a really good thing in our environment and in our squad.
Let's go to tennis action. The 2-time defending champion Carlos Alcaraz. What a masterclass. He beat Britain's Cameron Norrie. And we also got the world number 1. Sabalenka, she avoided a seismic shock. She fought back in the women's ranking to beat Laura Siegemund and claw her way into the Wimbledon semi-finals. And that's it. We'll serve up more sport. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, civil society movement Defend Our Democracy is calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to urgently address the nation following the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's damning allegations. Mkhwanazi has accused senior police officials, including the police minister Senzo Mchunu, of meddling in police operations and having links to criminal syndicates. Community policing forums from areas across the Cape Flats are today expected to meet in Lentegea to discuss solutions to the escalating shooting incidents in the area. In the past week, at least 10 people have been gunned down in the area. And US President Donald Trump says he's not happy with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. US efforts to broker a ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine have so far been unsuccessful. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty busy on Joburg's highways around some incidents again this morning. A crash at Galuli's N12 and R24 routes coming in from Ekurhuleni are both heavily pushing back towards their respective Edenvale exits. A crash and a breakdown on the M1 North just after 14th Avenue. Delays coming up from Soweto, making your way through to Bayers Nordia. And Route 1 through Midrand, jam-packed this morning. Brockfontein down to New Road. The side road, the old Joburg Road, under quite a bit of pressure as well. N4 heading into Pretoria, going to sit from Watermeyer Street through towards the N1 highway. Truck crash recovery continues just north of Balgowan. If you're on your way between Howick and Moy River, there's a delay there. Looks like a single lane section to squeeze into. Durban, a breakdown and roadworks at Congela, just by the M7 highway. So from Jacobs up through Clarewood on your way to Durban on the Southern Freeway, that's all heavily backed up. Crash scene near Westwood Mall in amongst the roadworks, the M2 queues this morning, right back through to Cement Factory territory. That's a heavy backlog on your way to Umgene roadside. And if you're going between KZN and the Eastern Cape, the R61 stays closed just west of Port Edward. That's effectively at this stage preventing through traffic between Port Edward and Bazana in the Eastern Cape. Cape Town, the Koeberg Road, all backed up through to Bloberg Road. That's a heavy queue passing Refinery for motorists on their way to Killarney Gardens and Denoonside. Lights are out, two big junctions, Stellenbosch Arterial at Symphony causing delays, and also the N7, Jake Scoville Drive at Viking Way by the Epping Fire Station. Lights down there as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. So this is really intriguing, isn't it? This massive deal, Vodacom massive deal, prohibited by the Competition Commission, went to the tribunal, confirmed to be prohibited, the minister going on appeal, and then now it appears there's a deal that has been worked out.
That's right, Thulas. And a surprise twist, as you're saying, competition authorities dropping opposition to Vodacom's massive deal, making way for the deal to go through. Now, the Commission and the Tribunal had initially opposed the merger, pointing to concerns about reduced competition and potential harm to consumers. But after intense negotiations, the parties agreed on revised conditions that address these concerns. The key agreements include Massive extending its capital expenditure commitments to a 5-year period post-merger, ensuring it remains incentivized to service third-party network operators. Additionally, the telecom operators have agreed to stronger incentives for divesting overlapping infrastructure, promoting what the Commission then calls fair competition. Now, the merger worth 13.2 billion rands is expected to boost investment in fiber and mobile connectivity, aligning with SA's priorities for industrialization. Notably, Vodacom had committed to investing 14 billion rands in SA's digital infrastructure, including rolling out fiber to 1 million homes in low-income areas and creating about 10,000 jobs. I don't know. I think it comes as no surprise considering, the pushback the got from the minister.
Yeah, absolutely. It had been massive, not just from the minister, but from a number of commentators. It will be interesting to see how it then plays itself out legally, right? Do they then drop the appeal to the appeals court, or I don't know. Let's see how it plays out practically. Talk to me about the JSE and this fresh wave of delistings.
Yeah. So the local bourse is expecting a wave of company delistings in the coming months, with several shares set to delist from the JSE. Many of these companies are smaller firms with limited free float and low trading volumes, struggling to justify the cost of maintaining a JSE listing. Several companies have already delisted or are expected to delist, including African Rainbow Capital, Trencor, Orvest, AO Technology, MTN Zakhele Futhi, and Assura. The main reasons behind these delistings are high compliance costs, low liquidity, and business rescue processes. Now, many companies have small market capitalizations, making it costly to maintain a JSE listing. Some companies have low trading volumes, making it difficult to justify the cost of a JSE listing. Now, Tongaat Hewlett, for example, remains listed but suspended and is expected to delist once its business rescue process is complete. Now, in an attempt to mitigate this, the JSE has amended regulations to make it easier for companies to list and stay listed, especially for those small cap stocks. And so far this year, we have had Greencoat Renewables and Shuka Minerals list on the bourse.
Lastly, Tauleng, how are the markets looking at this hour?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets mixed as traders are reluctant to make significant moves amid the lingering uncertainty about U.S. trade policy. And with that, the Hong Kong Hang Seng is in the red, losing 0.7%. Stateside, futures are flat. Traders on that front are awaiting Fed minutes, those minutes out later today. And then coming back home, trade choppy in yesterday's session with the all share shedding 0.1%. The rand in the meantime stable this morning. It's at 17.77 to the greenback.
Tauleng, thank you for that. We'll talk again in the third hour of the show just after 8:30.
The Copper Queens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win. But the Teranga Lionesses believe they have everything under control to roar with victory to the referee's final whistle. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the thrilling action between the West and the South. Zambia versus Senegal this Wednesday, 9 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Copper Queens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win. But the Teranga Lionesses believe they have everything under control to roar with victory to the referee's final whistle. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the thrilling action between the West and the South. Zambia versus Senegal this Wednesday, 9 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with the calls and then we'll go to the voice notes in a moment. Faisal in the Eastern Cape, good morning to you. You want to talk about justice for sale. What's that about?
Yes. Thulas, right, Thulas. Thulas, I want to say that you see, this our people, they like the hype headlines, fancy headlines. You see, 4 or 5 years back, in my city, I live in King Williamstown. There was a person, he was a delivery boy. They're working for pizza shop. So one of our community members, he knocked him with a car. He fell down. He was very bad. He was injured. He was in hospital. I visited him. And then the case was obviously left to the case. I went to the prosecutor. The prosecutor was Mr. Majiban, senior state prosecutor. I said, look, prosecutor, we've got this issue. Can we make, because it's normal, that thing is done. It can't, but no, it's not a gun case or an armed robbery. It's small case like this thing is normal, it's done. And we settled the matter. I collected the money from the community. I didn't benefit. Mr. Majiba never take a cent. And then our local doctor,
So
our local doctor, he treated him because if you have to treat almost 2-3 months treatment, you have to go under treatment. The doctor did that for free. Majibana didn't get a cent. He didn't collect a cent, the prosecutor. I didn't benefit anything. So that is normal. I don't know why this thing is. It is well, it's a smaller case. Even now, there's a discussion in South Africa. The people are foreigners arrested in South Africa. They have to go another country to own country serve their sentence there, which I don't know how is going to happen. That is very tricky thing. So that is normal. It does happen. Why make it a big issue?
Faisal, thank you for that. I think it's about seeing that there are other avenues to ensuring that there's justice that don't necessarily involve incarceration, especially for crimes on the lower end of the scale. Not that they're not crimes, they are, but in terms of the scale of seriousness, some of them being on the lower end, you can have alternative paths, as Faisal says there, that restorative justice, it sounded like it from what he was talking about. Let me speak to Denzel in the Northwest. Good morning to you, Denzel. Also on this issue of foreign nationals in our prisons.
Yes, Tula. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Please go ahead.
I'm good. Tula, man, this thing can be solved so easily.
Yeah.
What is the reason for the people to flock to South Africa? It's the leaders of our neighboring countries that's enriching themselves now, people. Now, can't our government, to solve the problem, can't they just call that leaders, have a meeting with them, say, no, man, you people your problems becomes our problems now. Can't you people lead the other way? It's not easy to call those people and tell them.
You would think it is, but it's not. You know how people value their sovereignty, that you will not interfere in the sovereign affairs of your neighboring states and the likes. So, yeah, you sit with the problem.
I know, but it's becoming our problem. We, the South Africans, are suffering.
Yeah.
It's becoming our problem.
Yeah. No,
I see what's happening in Zimbabwe. Most of the Zimbabwean people are here. Just imagine 151,000 foreigners in our jails. Who's keeping them there our tax monies?
Yeah. Now, Denzel, thank you for that. But just a correction, that figure is 24,000, we're told. Of the 161,000 total prison population, about 24,000, we're told, are foreign nationals. Let me go to Jacques in KZN. Good morning to you, Jacques. On the issue of tariffs this morning.
Yes, morning to you and your team. Again, to do the team, thank you so much for having such an excellent work etiquette. And I'm telling you now, I'll vote for you all if you have made your own political party. I promise I will.
We're considering it, Jacques. We're considering it.
So this is the two things I wanted to talk about. One thing main, the tariffs that Trump has imposed, or that he's supposedly imposing on South Africa.
Yeah.
I think the motor industry now, I've just seen an article yesterday on IRL to say that Mercedes-Benz is considering shutting down its South African operation due to the tariffs. And that in itself is how Trump has the lead card over us as a country. He is prioritizing America at the expense of South Africa, which is wrong to us but right to his people. And I think that's what we need. And I think at the end of the day, what we don't realize or we're not noticing is that politically he's changing this country completely without us even acknowledging it. Because Cyril Ramaphosa has the main problem in terms of that, in terms of the political party, the ANC, because the Trump administration has already shown that they have the power to actually change and inevitably do what they need to in order to change South Africa. Because I don't think that Trump is going to move or have any stance, but we are already thinking, as the professor said, we are thinking about how to change or how to alter the ramifications of what's happening.
Yeah.
But the sad state of affairs is that we ourselves can't consume the vehicles like the Mercedes-Benz, the BMWs, and the other manufacturers in the country because we've allowed the Chinese manufacturers to come in here flooded, get exemptions for the tax implications of what they bring in their cars for, and then we say BRICS is what. I've never saw the Chinese government satisfy the needs of another country without putting its own needs first. And that's why I'm saying at the end of the day, we've got an influx. The Chinese market, I think, is taken over maybe 40% or 30% of the South African car market.
Yeah.
But we make every single luxury car market here, but we can't afford the luxury market because the government in the first place never made the exemptions for the people of this country to buy the vehicles that are manufactured here.
Jacques, thank you for that input. It's quite complex, isn't it, where you are driving your national interest, and your national interest is at the heart of how you interact with other states. But at the same time, as soon as that rubber hits the road, you are encountered with other states that are also putting their own national interests ahead. I mean, an example between the United States and Japan, I think it is really apt because from the conversation I've heard, the United States wants Japan to import more US vehicles. But Japan's counter argument is that there's just no demand within our market. The Japanese are known for, they just prefer more practical cars than the massive trucks that will be exported from the United States. There's just no market that is significant for that kind of vehicle type. So, how do you press a country like Japan to say import more of our vehicles where objectively there isn't a demand? In a way, I'm answering Jacques' point about Chinese vehicles, in that in South Africa, studies tell us, the reports tell us that demand, the imports of Chinese vehicles is actually driven by demand that continues to grow within our market. Jimmy Khobokwana, you want to talk to me about prisons. You are in Khobokwane. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
You know why our prisons are overcrowded?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's how these people are being treated in prison.
Mm.
I once watched a particular documentary. I think it was the study of prisons in Africa. And then they singled out the 3 countries. It was Madagascar, Zimbabwe, and the DRC.
Yeah.
And then in those countries, in particular, the inmates, they take actually the responsibility of their families. That with the food and everything, the state doesn't contribute anything to those people, because remember, these are the people who have wronged the state.
Yes.
Now, how can the state then support them? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And secondly is the issue of the unions. I mean, I don't understand the role of the unions in the prisons, because here is somebody who have taken someone's constitutional right. Let's say maybe they killed them, right? And you still have a new union that has the audacity to can represent the interest of the prisoners as opposed to the person who have lost their life. That is why our prisons are overcrowded. And then if maybe we can introduce or study from other 3 countries that I've already mentioned, maybe the overcrowding in our prison can dwindle.
Yeah. No, I hear you, Jimmy. Thank you for that. That's Jimmy in Khobokwane there. The difficulty, of course, is our own constitution, human rights culture that says just because you've wronged society, you are not stripped entirely of all your rights. Some of your rights are limited, your freedom of movement and other liberties, but the state continues to have a responsibility to you in terms of ensuring that your dignity and other rights continue to be secured. So, yeah, that's the situation we chose. That's the regime that we chose for ourselves. Let me take this voice note, actually, because it talks exactly to that issue.
Good morning, and thanks for a great show. This is Sean from St. So when I was younger, I was addicted to addictive substances. And I was incarcerated for 6 weeks awaiting trial. And the only reason I couldn't get out of jail was because I couldn't give up a valid home address. And a lot of the guys I saw inside there are guys on the streets that just can't give valid home addresses, so they can't come back for their trials. So that is a massive problem, and one that the government maybe needs to have a look at. Anyway, thanks for a fantastic show.
No, thank you for that. And it's an important one, isn't it? Because the whole point of giving you bail is to ensure that you don't run away, right? We trust you based on our assessment of who you are, your circumstances, where you live, your propensity to run away from standing trial or not. That's what goes into the equation. So if you can't prove, you can show us that you have a fixed address where we can go and find you when you don't come to stand trial, that does seem to pose a bit of a problem. But also this issue that the portfolio committee has been raising about inmates whose bail has actually been fixed. So it's not a matter of this person is not eligible for bail. They are, but the bail has been fixed at 800 Rand, and objectively, this person just can't afford it. This is where the solution seeking is at the moment. Let me take this one that has to do with the comments of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
Morning, Thulas. It's Chris and Peter Marisbeck. You know, one of the things that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is addressing is an end to political choke in the public administration. This is something that we have been discussing in hush-hushes for many years, the toxic conflation between the state and the public administration. It's an issue that is very important because to me, as a public servant, he is saying this must come to an end now or never again. And I think it's an important message, it's an important voice that we all must take up. I don't know what other South Africans are saying.
That's an interesting take there. Thank you for that, Chris. Just that separation between the political arm as well as the administrative arm, but the choke, as you call it, that the chokehold of the politics over the administration. It does feel like it's a moment of reckoning, right? As much as people are talking about the procedures, protocols, etc., it does seem that at the very least, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has forced onto the table the critical conversations about the state of these organs of state and institutions such as the SAPS and others. And it does seem like a moment of reckoning that should not be allowed to go to waste.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow from the Ekurhuleni side. Coming into Joburg this morning with a crash at Galuli's interchange. N12 and R24 routes remained heavily backed up as you line up from the respective Edenvale exits, if you like. Both of those routes into Galuli's to join the N3 under great pressure today. Also the N1 coming through Midrand, fairly busy still between the old Joburg Road exit and New Road, the side road, the old Joburg Road, the R101. That's been quite heavily backed up for motorists exiting that N1 and then travelling down through towards sort of Oliphant's Fontaine. So your main N1 and the R101 both are carrying some big volumes and going very slowly this Wednesday morning. Some delays still with us on the N1, a breakdown after an earlier crash in on the M1 North at 14th Avenue, the Bayers Nordia. It's all being cleared up actually, so that's looking a lot better. The Mike 1 from Boyson's through to Parktown stays heavy. And if you're driving into Pretoria this morning, not a bad run. A little bit of pressure around the Dustport Tunnel, which is the standout queue. Durban, earlier crash into North in the roadworks at Westwood Mall, causing delays all the way back to Cement Factory. That is heavy. The M4, the Southern Freeway from the M7 at Umbilo all the way up in towards central Durban is heavy. There's delays as you come off that M4 and pick up the Esplanade, the long-term roadworks on that Victoria Embankment section still very much there. Balgowan looking a lot better now. Howick through to Moy River seems that scene may well be cleared out of the way. And Cape Town with a real school holiday vibe about the traffic flows this morning. N1's probably the busiest highway sitting from Monte Vista to Kuiper interchange. The other big delay is around Epping Fire Station, Viking Way and Jakes Kerville. Those traffic lights out of order this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 750ml Sunlight Dishwashing Liquid Refill for $26.99 and save 11 Rand. Or 400ml Vaseline Lotion or Cream for $49.99 and save 28 Rand. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Price is valid until 21 July 2025. While stocks last. T's and C's apply.
The Congolese have a huge mission to silence the hosts. But the Atlas Lionesses are not shaken. They are confident they will keep the people of Morocco happy. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the exciting contest between Democratic Republic of Congo and Morocco this Wednesday, 9 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. They all believe they will be crowned champions. But gold medallions are reserved for the best of them all. It is the incredible clash of the 12 African women's national teams. Catch all the 24 matches of the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's focus on this now. The country's leading medical aid schemes are facing intense scrutiny following the release of the final Section 59 panel report, which confirms widespread racial discrimination against Black healthcare professionals. The report, commissioned in 2019 to investigate allegations of racial profiling in medical fraud investigations, was delivered to the Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. While Motsoaledi described the findings as shocking and a wake-up call to the deep inequalities in the health funding system, the Board of Healthcare Funders has fiercely rejected it, calling its methodology flawed and warning of unintended consequences for anti-fraud efforts. So let's speak to Dr. Katlego Motudi, who is the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning. What about this report do you find to be problematic?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and thanks for having us. As per your opening remarks, we have a challenge with the methodology deployed in the statistical analysis, and we have made various inputs in that regard. Unfortunately, the panel disregarded them, and I think it's a dangerous narrative, especially with the history of this country. What the statistician did, because in the industry, we don't use any racial identifier in the data. Mm-hmm. We use practice numbers, and that's what schemes and the claims machinery see. But when they extracted the data, they use surnames as a proxy for race classification. That was the first part. The second part is in the interpretation of the data. We do acknowledge that there is a racial bias, but even in the interim report, the panel did say that there was no intention that they could detect on the part of the schemes or administrators. Now it came down to how you interpret the data. 67% of the schemes actually is made up of previously disadvantaged people. And one of the schemes that was flagged, GEM specifically, I think almost 91% of the beneficiaries on the schemes are black. It goes without saying that they will consult largely black service providers. So any sampling of their activities would have a racial bias, but it doesn't mean that it's a racial profiling.
So are you saying to us that this is just sheer coincidence, saying that in terms of sampling and targeting for fraud investigations, you go by practice number and not surname? The results that we then see that say, for instance, that in 2014, black dental therapists under GEMS were about 3 times more likely to be investigated and found guilty of fraud. In 2017, black psychiatrists under Discovery were about 3.5 times more likely to be investigated and found guilty of fraud, waste, and abuse. All of that is just sheer coincidence.
We won't call it coincidence because the data just show a particular bias, but we say it is not intentional and it is not profiling. Black practitioners are not targeted. That's the messaging.
So how do we fix it then? Because while there's no intention, and that's noble, if the results are and the effect is a profiling in a negative way of black practitioners, surely something has got to be done to fix it.
So see, the issue is, can you explain the demographics? And let me just draw another inference. If you go to the prisons right now and you look at the racial profile, you will find that most likely there are black people more than any other races in there. What inference can you draw from that? Does it mean that the judiciary and our policing system is racist, or is it a reflection of demographics? If you are able to answer that, then you can then deal with how we fix it. Now, we know that fraud is an issue, and that's something that we should not be distracted from. And we must just focus on making sure that the processes, as they were outlined in the recommendation.
But it becomes problematic when it seems to be disproportionate.
It seems so,
yes.
But we can explain why it looks like that, and it is not unfair. And that's the point that I'm saying, that it looks disproportionate, but you can actually explain why it is like that.
So what are your plans around this report then?
At the moment, there is no decision because it has no legal bearing. We are going to hear what the department says. there are some strong recommendations in terms of certain processes. There's definitely a gap in the oversight played by both the Council for Medical Schemes as well as the department. And there was a recommendation that maybe there should be certain regulations that are promulgated. But this go towards the processes, not necessarily the data extractions.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Dr. Katle Homotudi, the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders. A bit late for news, but let's check in with N. Musa now.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 0800 60,000 today.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa urged to address the nation following Mkhwenazi's allegations, and US President slams Putin on Ukraine. Good morning. We start with news just in. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu vehemently denies ever meeting controversial businessman Vusimuzi Cat Matlala. This is contained in a statement the minister has just released. We'll have details in our next bulletin. Civil society movement Defend Our Democracy is calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to urgently address the nation following the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwenazi's damning allegations. Mkhwenazi's accused senior police officials, including the Minister Senzo Mchunu, of meddling in police operations and having links to criminal syndicates. The movement has also called for a full independent judicial commission of inquiry into some criminals' alleged capture of the criminal justice system. Defend Our Democracy Executive Director Naledi Khwadi.
It's an absolute disaster. It requires the utmost urgency because it speaks to institutions that are tasked with public safety, they are tasked with the rule of law, and a delay will speak to a lackluster reaction. It has to be a high priority because the country right now sits and they are concerned that the people they trust the most in times of need, and there's a loss of faith already.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly Speaker, Toko Didiza, has confirmed she's considering a course of action following Mkhwenazi's allegations. She says her office has received communication from political parties on the issue. Parliament spokesperson Muloto Mutapo.
2 letters have since been received by the Office of the Speaker from political parties requesting a snap debate on the issues raised by General Mkhwenazi in accordance with the rules of the National Assembly. In addition, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police in the National Assembly has written to the Speaker seeking guidance on how the committee should address these matters as they fall within its oversight responsibilities. The Speaker is indeed currently considering all these matters. An appropriate decision will be made.
Community policing forums from across the Cape Flats are expected to meet with senior police management in Lentegeur later today. They will discuss solutions to the escalating shooting incidents in the area. In the past week, at least 10 people have been gunned down in the area. Police have also seized firearms and arrested several people in the gang-hit townships of the Cape Flats. CPF include those from areas such as Kailicha, Mitchell's Plain, Elsie's River, Mfuleni, Menenberg and Nyanga. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against the Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge will continue this morning. Mbenenge is accused of sexual harassment between June 2021 and November 2022. The top judge has spent the past 2 days denying the allegations. He has now been placed under cross-examination. Evidence leader Advocate Salome Skeepers first tested Mbenenge's knowledge of his authority as head of the court in a cross-examination. She also focused on his thoughts on the alleged relationship given his position as well as marital status. And finally, US President Donald Trump says he's not happy with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. He was speaking to the media during a cabinet meeting at the White House. US efforts to broker a ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine have so far been unsuccessful. Showan Bryce Peace reports.
Trump also said he had approved sending US defensive weapons to Ukraine and was also considering whether to support a Senate effort that would impose additional steep sanctions on Russia because of the war, punitive actions that could include US sanctions on countries that purchase Russian oil and gas, among other measures. Trump said Putin was very nice all the time, but that it turned out to be meaningless as mediation efforts stall. Trump also noted that Russian and Ukrainian soldiers were dying by the thousands in the war. Sherman Ricepeace, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu vehemently denies ever meeting the controversial businessman Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. This is contained in a statement the minister has just released. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Breaking news just in. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, slashed 870 Rand a month of her car insurance premium. That's right. Pinky switched to Outsurance and now saves a mind-blowing 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Outsurance clients always get something out. Get a quote today and see how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Eddie, coming off the East Rand area into Galuli's interchange this morning, a crash pushing the N12 and R24 routes back to their respective Edenvale exits. Both routes under pressure this morning. The Mike 1, Boyson's through to around about Oxford Road is the heavy queue there. The N1 going north, earlier crashes and breakdowns between 14th and Bayers Nordeer, all that's been cleared out. There is a bit of traffic building up on the R59, just northbound into Swartkoppes Road. We'll watch that one for you. Route 1 this morning, Old Joburg down to Olifantsfontein Road is pretty heavily backed up. In the N4 into Pretoria, queuing from Watermaas Street down towards the M1 highway. Durban, earlier crash, N2 north in amongst the roadworks at Westwood Mall is the reason for the big queues this morning. Traffic heading north up the N2, backlogging from Cement Factory. On your way very slow through Spaghetti Junction. M4 Southern Freeway into town is all clogged up as well. And Cape Town, no traffic lights. Jakes Kerwell at Viking Way. Traffic all approaches there remaining fairly tight. And the N1 inbound, the busiest of the highways around Cape Town with queues from Monte Vista through to Kuburg interchange. Also at the interchange on the M5 north, a broken down vehicle coming off the M5 onto the N1 outbound, slowing up traffic through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8. 9 minutes after what? What did I say? What? Where? What? Hate. 9 minutes after 8 on this Wednesday. It is great to be in your company. This is the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. So you will have heard in N. Musa's bulletin the lead story there, that statement coming in the last few minutes from the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, addressing pointedly the issues that have been raised by the Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the allegations that have been made. You'll remember that at the heart of those allegations are associates of the minister, people that are named by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. So let me just read it for you, because there are two people that are important in this. One of them is one Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, and then there's a Mr. Brown Mokhotsi. So the statement from the minister says, in response to the recent allegations made by Provincial Commissioner Mkhwanazi, and while respecting the President's call for calm, the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mchunu, feels it is important to clarify the following. The minister has never met Mr. Matlala, has never spoken to him, nor has the minister ever requested or received anything from him. Then the minister goes on to say the minister did, however, initiate a review of the SAPS tender awarded to him when suspicions of possible wrongdoing surfaced. It was the same tender which has since been terminated. Further, while the minister knows and has met Mr. Brown Mokhotsi, he is just a comrade and not an associate of the minister. The minister has never requested or received anything from him. And that is what has come through under the hand of Kamokhelo Mokhotsi, who is the minister's spokesperson. So there you have it. The minister not wanting to delve any deeper into the issue, but just clarifying that he has never met Mr. Vusumuzi Ket Matlala, has never spoken to him, nor asked for anything or requested anything from him. But he does know Mr. Brown Mokhotsi as a comrade, not an associate. I don't know if this helps the minister to a large extent, because the links are drawn between Brown Mokhotsi, that the minister says he knows and is a comrade, and Mr. Vusumuzi Ket Matlala. If you follow the allegations, they go as far as to say that there are exchanges between these two men where allusion is made to the dissolution of the political killings task team, and the assurance, at least according to Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, is that the assurance comes from Mr. Brown Mokhotsi to Mr. Matlala that says the unit that was troubling you has been disbanded as we speak. Their files are sitting with Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. Then there are all those issues around payment for a January 8th statement, gala dinner and tables and the likes. So I don't know. I think the questions continue to linger, but that's just my impression of it. Of course, the president has said, hang 10, hold tight. I will attend to these allegations. I don't know what you make of what you've heard this morning. Call me on 086 000 2032 or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. And in fact, in the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Dr. Mpho Matlala, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Police Practice at UNISA. We'll be unpacking further these allegations. The third hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief is underway.
The Eagles of Carthage and the Phoenix both believe they are the queens of North Africa. Who are the real queens of the North? This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the spectacular battle between Tunisia and Algeria this Thursday, 10 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, let's pick up on that story. The recent explosive revelations by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi once again throwing a harsh spotlight on the state of policing in the country, exposing deep cracks within the South African police service. Mkhwanazi's whistleblower-style allegations implicating senior police officials and even the police minister Senzo Mchunu in political interference and criminal collusion have raised national concerns over growing political killings, rising violent crime, and the insecurity facing whistleblowers and the public at large. Let's welcome Dr. Mpho Matlala, senior lecturer at the Department of Police Practice at UNISA, also a law enforcement expert. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So I just read out a statement from the minister coming through this morning. I don't know how much of that you heard. Just make sense of it in light of all the allegations that we've heard from Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Where does this leave us in terms of this critical institution that is known as the SAPS?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners, and thank you for having me. I have had the response by the minister, and obviously the minister is exercising his right in terms of the Audi Alteram pattern. But the responses that he is giving are not really substantive. In other words, they are not addressing the allegation in a manner of telling what the story really is, and which I think was a very careful move from the minister, because then this will allow the president to probe deeper into this, and this is where now the real evidence is going to surface. Hopefully we will get to the bottom of this, because they owe South Africa that much. But then, in terms of the state of policing, maybe let me make an example with the political killings, for example. You will realize that from 2020 there was about 24, 2021 30, 2022 40, then 2023 131. There was a huge spike, and that can be explained because it is a year before the general elections. National elections, so naturally there will be contestations for power, for political power, and so other actors within the political space will want to take out other actors, and then in 2024 it went down to 35. But I don't have the data for 2020. In 2024, sorry, it went to 35. I don't have the data for 2025, but what this says about the state of policing, is really that there is a problem, but that problem needs to be contextualized. In terms of the operational side of policing, there has been improvement. If you had listened to General Fanima Semola early in the year, he alluded to the fact that the quality, the level of quality in crime intelligence has improved significantly. And this is part of the reason why in KZN, police operations have been very, very effective.
Dr. Matala, let me move us along in our conversation. I want to touch on an aspect that many South Africans are commenting about, the networks between political players and some of these figures that ultimately, are accused of some criminality or another. We woke up yesterday to allegations reported that former police minister Bheki has links to this Vusumuzi Ket Matlala, a person that, faces not just this issue, but actually has faced quite a number of other allegations and in fact is in custody as far as we understand. But somehow this person, there's some link, no matter how tenuous, there is a link. Ideally, you don't want to hear that there's a link between a politician entrusted with such a senior position in the law enforcement, infrastructure with a figure that is questionable, that, can face allegations and be standing trial. But in this case, you can draw lines between Vusumuzi Ket Matlala and former Minister Bheki, draw lines, and by the admission of the current Minister Senzo Mchunu to this Mr. Mokhotsi, Brown Mokhotsi, and you can still draw lines between Mr. Mokhotsi and Mr. Matlala. How problematic is that ecosystem, politics interfering or interacting with criminals and the underworld?
It is a very problematic situation, and that is exactly what constitutes a threat to national security. However, we shouldn't blur the lines to say if Bheki is connected to Ket Matlala, and Ket Matlala is connected to Mokhotsi, and Mokhotsi is connected to Senzo Mchunu. Therefore, the entire chain, even though it is problematic on face value, but what I'm trying to say is that we should pinpoint where the criminality and the wrongdoing is. But for police generals now to get meddled into that whole equation, it really, really threatens the democracy in this country, because then it talks to the operational efficiency of the police and the chain of command being broken.
Yeah, I suppose the point I was trying to elicit and raise has to do with the fact that you don't expect them to have any kind of links with people that may be questionable, let alone hearing that there have been donations to political parties, the ANC's January 8 statement and gala dinner. I think that's the political networking element that I was talking to.
Absolutely. You don't expect the ministers or even police generals to actually have relationships with such people. But remember, in the political world, some of these acquaintances are made even long before a certain individual becomes a minister. But then for that minister not to cut those ties as soon as they assume office, then that also really raises issues about their own integrity.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it echoes back to the whole Jackie Selebi, Glenn Agliotti situation a few years ago, several years ago. Glenn Agliotti is my friend, Finish and Clar, went the famous quote. But how do we unravel then what we are facing with? The president is back in the country to face these issues and has said that, he understands the gravity and the urgency with which they need to be treated. How do we unravel it going forward?
I think for me, let me take out of the equation the call that has been made for a commission of inquiry, judicial commission of inquiry. It is tedious, it is time consuming, it is very expensive. We don't have time. And really what I would be expecting would be for the president to either appoint a task team or direct this issue to be channeled to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police to actually start an inquiry into this whole matter. But the urgency of the situation is that it needs to be resolved as in yesterday. Waiting on this will really be giving actors in the criminal underworld more leeway to infiltrate the police. They already have anyway. That is what we are seeing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Dr. Mpho Matlala, Senior Lecturer in the Department of Police Practice at UNISA, but also a law enforcement expert, underscoring the urgency. It just needs to be done expeditiously. This is not one of those where you can have a commission of inquiry starting in a year's time. We just don't have that luxury of letting these allegations linger. Thank you for your time this morning, Doc.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions by Yana. Witness the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Zinzi, the Gen Z. Word on the street is you sold your car.
Yes, and I needed a glow up. Hashtag no hustle, no hassle.
So wait. The influencer got influenced by We Buy Cars.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And they came to me. They checked the car, they gave me an offer. Oh, and they paid me immediately. Easier than an Insta Live, without the weird DMs at 2 a.m.
I didn't understand half of the things you just said, but hey, We Buy Cars. Geared for the glow up, geared for you.
30 years ago, a moment united a nation. From Ellis Park to every township and village, we stood together. One people, one dream, one victory. Now, the vibration rises again. From the heart of Mzansi to every corner of the country. The 4-time world champions, the mighty Springboks, take on the Azuri in a clash where history meets destiny. This is more than a match. It's a country moment. Only on SABC. Celebrate the 30th anniversary of our 1995 Rugby World Cup victory. Watch South Africa versus Italy. Saturday, 12 July at 4 p.m. Live on SABC2 and streaming on SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5 p.m. Download the SABC Plus app now. Switch, stream, no subscription. SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
A quick call from Crispin in KZN. Good morning to you, Crispin.
Morning, Thulasizwe. You know, in my long life, I've become very used to people talking with absolute conviction when they may well be absolutely wrong. I mean, I grew up amongst white South Africans who had very, very strong, they just knew that black people were like this and that we couldn't trust anyone but ourselves to run everything. Then I hear this absolute conviction of support for Mkhwanazi. It's like a complete from beginning to end. It's all true as he sets it out. Now, hold on. It may well be that some of this is true, but my guess is that, well, my certainty is actually that there are highly placed people in criminal networks who are being protected by certain politicians. It doesn't necessarily mean that what Mkhwanazi is saying about those specific politicians and those specific criminals is actually correct. We have to be very critical. We have to be very searching. We have to be probe. And Mkhwanazi needs to be subject to a lot of questioning as to how do you know? Where did you get that information? How was that information dealt with when you got whatever information you did get?
Yeah, no, I hear you. So a degree of skepticism and somewhat cynicism that questions everything.
Yeah, maybe not being entirely cynical because, you know, he may even be in some way driven by really good motives, I think in part. But we know that there are politicians jumping onto this in a way which suggests, hold on, this is suiting them politically and it's convenient for them. And that makes me very mistrustful. Then what is the truth? Is this convenience or is this truth?
All right. Crispin, thank you for that. That's Crispin out in KZN.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headline, Willie Leroux, that's the rugby that we'll kick off with. He just became the 8th Springbok to reach a century of test caps when he runs out against Italy in Gqeberha. That's on Saturday. Salman Murat takes over the captaincy in a much-changed Springbok side for the second test against the Azuri as Rassie Erasmus and his Boks look to bounce back strongly after a disappointing performance by their own high standards at Loftus Versfeld. And after 2 performances off the bench to start the season, Leroux has been handed the number 15 jersey for his 100th test. Let's go elsewhere to some soccer news, and Germany extending their 100% record at Euro 2025 with the comeback 2-1 win, and that was over Denmark in Basel. And we'll also bring you news of cricket. Scotland's bowlers securing a narrow victory over Netherlands and boosting their hopes of the T20. And that's the World Cup qualification. The Scots won the toss and batted first. George Munsey caught by Noah Cruz off the 3rd ball. So plenty of excitement for Scotland as they make their way towards T20 World Cup qualification. And we'll also have tennis action from the world number 1 Arina Sabalenka, narrowly avoiding. And this is a seismic shock for Sabalenka. And it was the veteran Laura Siegemund who put it to the test. Sabalenka had to come back from a set down to make sure that she goes into the next round at Wimbledon. So plenty to look forward to as well. Carlos Alcaraz, he's on track, and together with Novak Djokovic. So that's going to be an exciting day at Wimbledon. And that's a wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. So we'll serve up more. That's at around 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has vehemently denied ever meeting the controversial businessman Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. The minister's denial is contained in a statement his ministry released a short while ago. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against the Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge will continue this morning. The top judge has spent the past 2 days denying the allegations. And the death toll in the aftermath of the catastrophic flash flooding in the U.S. state of Texas has risen to 110, while those missing have now exceeded 160. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Busy on your way to Sandton this morning. Rivonia Road heading south of Greyston's quite slow. Catherine Street coming down to Greyston. Very heavy backlogs there as well today. And the Mike 1 North just up to the Greyston off-ramp looking a bit sluggish. Lights are out on Jan Smuts and Conrad, so delays all over that Craighall Park area. Bayers Nordeer from Lifestyle across the highway to Fairland, very slow. And big heavy traffic on Malabongwe from Cosmo as you make your way towards North Riding. Malabongwe down through Boundary and River Road through all those faulty lights towards Vickoppen Road, quite slow. N1 still sluggish, but looks like it might be easing between Old Joburg Road and New Road. There are some roadworks that normally swing in off-peak part of the day at New Road, so just watch for those delays, maybe extending a little bit further. Durban, earlier crash in the roadworks. N2 north at Westwood Mall is being cleared, but there's some very heavy backlogging going on that section. The N2 from the cement factory up through Spaghetti Junction stays really heavily backed up. Cape Town, real school holiday vibe. Probably the heaviest queue at the moment is Baden-Powell Drive between Strandfontein and Muizenberg. Big queues in towards Capricorn Circle heading to Muizenberg. And Oudtshoorn looks like there might be a problem if you're driving from Noordhoek. Some slow traffic Silvermine on your way down towards sort of the Westlake area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's start with news to do with the South African Reserve Bank. They're receiving support from the finance minister about this whole idea of lowering even further the inflation target band. Tell me a bit more about that.
That's right, Thulas. It seems like the SARB and National Treasury are nearing completion of their joint efforts to review and refine the nation's inflation target strategy. Treasury and SARB, Governor Lesotho Kganyago, have been working together to determine the best approach, with Kganyago advocating for a lower target of 3% to anchor inflation expectations and lead to lower interest rates. While Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana supports the move, he has cautioned against rushing into this decision without thorough consideration of its social and economic implications. Now, according to the SARB's annual report, the potential benefits of reducing the inflation target include reduced inflation and borrowing costs, improved policy transmission, and stronger economic growth. Modeling by the SARB indicates that inflation expectations could decline quickly given the recent history of inflation hovering around the lower end of that 3 to 6% target band, along with enhanced SARB credibility. While there are pros, many are criticizing the timing of the move, considering that growth sits at 0.1%, arguing that the focus should be on stimulating growth instead.
So just for me to get this straight, and Dowling, are we saying that the band would be narrower? Instead of 3 to 6%, it would be 0 to 3%?
So to my understanding, it seems like they're going to scrap the target range as a whole and just anchor at 3%.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but it would come with a lot of pain for you and I, right? The whole idea of a generous rates policy, we can throw that out of the window.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like the short term, according to Governor Lesotho Kganyago, he says the short term impact will be dire, and that's why there's been so much criticism in terms of the timing of the move, because we need the rates to be cut to support economic growth. So if we are then limiting that target range, we're going to see some short term pressure, pain coming through. Yeah.
All right, let's see how it plays out. Hopefully in the coming days I can be able to engage the Reserve Bank governor. I'm hoping to line up something. Sometimes you need to state a number, not as a global number, but, narrow it down and basically pin it down to what it translates to per day. And that's exactly what has been done in relation to illicit tobacco sales in the country. What number are we talking about?
We're talking about 100 million each working day. So illicit trade really proving to be a problem here at home, resulting in an estimated annual loss of 24 billion rand in revenue, which then translates to that number I mentioned, 100 million rands each working day. A recent study by Ipsos, commissioned by British American Tobacco, showed over 91% of products sold without excess duty or value-added tax come from 14 local manufacturers, with cigarettes being sold at low prices, sometimes as low as 5 rand per packet of 20. Now, this is below the minimum collectible tax of 26 rand 22 cents per pack. In addition, the study unveiled that 76.6% of cigarettes are sold below the minimum collectible tax, up from 27% in 2022. The hotspots for cheap cigarettes are the Eastern, Northern, and Western Cape, as well as the Northwest, where over 80% of retail stores sampled sold cigarettes at below the MCT. Now, British American Tobacco said illicit trade has had a significant impact on legitimate businesses, forcing it to downsize operations in the country. This has also affected emerging farmers who used to supply tobacco to British American Tobacco, with the company spending 13 million rands on 168 emerging farmers in 2018-2019, which shrank to 2.2 million rand spent on 79 farmers in 2023. Now, to combat the illicit tobacco trade, BAT recommends that SARS conduct forensic audits of all tobacco factories, introduce a minimum retail price for tobacco, and prioritize investigating and prosecuting complex crimes related to illicit trade.
All right, lastly, do your thing for us, Ndauli, and cast your eye ahead a few hours and give us a sense of the kind of trading day we can expect today.
So trade here at home likely to be mixed today, just following global peers. Company news thin, so attention will still be on international news. In currency markets, the rand remains stable despite the slight strengthening we've been seeing from the dollar. It is sitting at 17.78 to the greenback. Over in the US, investors are awaiting the Fed minutes for further insight on policymakers thinking of the move they made at the last meeting. Ahead of that, futures are flat. Lastly, in Asia, markets likely to close the day mostly in the green. The Hong Kong Hang Seng, however, the only index in the red today. We are still seeing those jitters coming through as investors continue to assess trade risks.
One more day of you enjoying doing this while you are sipping on your coffee under the covers and stuff, and then you'll be in studio with me on Friday, right? Still on, right?
You and I. I'm like, it's you and I and the rest of the team on Friday.
Fantastic. Dowling Lichela, always right on the money. She's kept you updated on all things to do with the economy, business, and the markets throughout the course of the show today.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
So a lot of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes have got to do with this issue and the allegations made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the response of the Minister Senzo Mchunu. So let me take one or two that are raising completely different points. Someone here wants to talk about Uber Eats and alcohol. Let's hear what that is all about.
Good morning, Bratulas. This is Mbongo Swendisa. Bratulas, I don't think it's a good idea for SPAR to partner with this Uber Eats to deliver alcohol. You know, this is South Africa. Somebody's going to order like 10 bottles and rob all those 10 bottles and pay them nothing. So it's not a good idea. Maybe in suburbs, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you, Mbongo. Thank you for that. But of course, the practice right now, for instance, around issues of ensuring that the alcohol is not delivered to someone underage, when the delivery is made, the delivery driver is expected to ask you to confirm your age. And I don't know, I think you're supposed to show your ID or something like that. I don't know the extent to which that happens. As for robberies, isn't it sad? Isn't it sad that we can't even have a bright idea without thinking about, this abnormal crime situation that we face and how it will feature in all of the plans that we make? At what point do we stop letting ourselves down in that way and deal with the scourge of crime and normalize our situation? When will that point come for us?
Now I understand the reason why that illegal mining kingpin was just disappear in front of the minister there by Blackstop. Dear Pasha having in Begersford.
I hear you. I hear the connections you are drawing. Just the skepticism and mistrust that has been sowed by all of these allegations and revelations. Again, underscoring why we need to get to the bottom of whatever is going on in this situation. Let me take a call from Mike in Garankuwa. Good morning to you, Mike. You want to talk about the Alexandra Renewal Project. What about it?
Yeah, Thulasizwe, I want to know this Alexandra Renewal Project, 1.3 billion they are talking about. Was this money allocated or was it a costing or estimation? I know that it was announced during Thabo Mbeki's tenure. Was it money allocated or was it just an estimation or costing?
No, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, Mike. But it's a good question that you are asking, and I'll be sure to research on it. Why do you ask?
I'm asking this because in many reports and newspapers, the name of Paul Mashatile and Leboga Maile, MEC for Finance in Gauteng, were mentioned. I remember even that lady was a provincial secretary of EFF, who's that one, Mandisa Mashiko. She even mentioned that Leboga Maile and Paul Mashatile were involved in siphoning that money. So I just want to get the clear answer.
No,
was the money allocated or it was just a costing or estimation?
Well, I don't know. Mike, thank you for raising it. Let's see. Maybe someone knows.
I just want to mention another thing.
Yes, please go ahead.
The statement made by General Mkhwanazi with regard to the prosecutors in Gauteng. In this case, the stumbling block in many cases of criminals to go forward in Gauteng is provincial DPP Andrew Chauke. That man must be removed. We can't have rogue prosecutors that are working with criminals. Mkhwanazi was correct. It's Andrew Chauke.
Mike, you and I think we've had this conversation before. We do need to be absolutely responsible, because now I will have to ask you, what proof do you have of Andrew Chauke's rogueness? And then it leads us down a spiral. So if you're going to make a substantive allegation, I hate sounding like I'm in parliament, but if you're going to make an allegation of this nature, what proof do you have? And also, at what point do we allow this person that you are now accusing on a public platform to be able to respond for themselves? So just responsibility.
Can I mention this?
Yes.
One particular case that shows that Andrew Chauke in some way or the other is involved is the case even Shamila Batoyi wanted to appeal it when he withdrew the case of with this guy, Kota. Shamila Batoyi even said that she's going to appeal that decision that Chauke has taken. And there are many allegations against it. So the issue is, let this man be investigated.
Okay. Mike?
Because if he's not investigated, there will be many untested allegations.
All right. No, that's great. I don't think anyone can quibble with that. If you have suspicions, let them be investigated. That is Mike in Garankuwa. And I do believe that we do need to reach out to the DPP in Gauteng. The team is nodding that we should exactly do that. And I know that in the past we said we would. Now is the time to actually follow through on that, because this allegation has again come up from Mike in Garankuwa. Lubabalo in Kukuletu. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's just that I would like to talk about Senzo Mchunu.
Yes.
You know, the police minister, I believe is guilty of all the allegations directed at him because of this one statement, Thulas. Who does big business on New Year's Eve? On the 31st of December 2024, while everyone is celebrating a new year, the minister is busy disbanding an intelligence task force team. I mean, just that one, it just doesn't make sense for me for you to disband
So
a
you're saying
task
that
force on
you're
the
saying the
31st.
timing on its own is revealing.
It's revealing to us. I mean, we need that intelligence, because look at what's happening across the board. With all the extortionists on the rise. Even in the rural areas. And you on the New Year's Eve, you disband such a big, important intelligence. It doesn't make sense.
All right, Lubabalo, thank you for that interesting take there from Lubabalo, taking issue with the timing of the decision to disband the political killings task team. Magdalene in Bloemfontein, good morning.
Morning, Thulasizwe and the listeners. You know what, Mr. Mkhwanazi didn't do something wrong. He did the best. The thing is that the government of ANC, once you report the wrongdoing of their own politicians, they ignore can give you an ear or a hearing. They will always acknowledge it. They did the same with me, with the municipality of Mangaung. I reported the administration. That time the Mangaung was still under the administration, under the directive of Mr. Nel. I reported even to the public protector and the president office himself. He only acknowledged, and then he never came back. Instead, the corruption continued of waste collection. So these people really, and Mr. Mkhwanazi, we need more Mr. Mkhwanazis in South Africa right now to repair South Africa.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Magdalene. In fact, on the same theme, let me take Prince in Tzaneen. Good morning to you, Prince.
Good morning.
I'm very well. Please go ahead.
Yes, man. According to me, you can never smoke without fire. So whatever the president may come back and say, we know that this is trying to cover up this thing. At the end of the day, we know that there was something about, because Mkhwanazi can't just go and report his comrades just like that for nothing. He knows he's tired. Maybe he tried to engage a couple of them and nobody's listening. So according to me now, it's about time they will just wake up.
Yeah.
Because trying to fix this government is like you want to fix the meat that is already rotten and you think you're going to buy the herbs and the spices. I'm telling you, the meat is still rotten at the end of the day.
It remains rotten no matter how much you spice it up.
Yes, Tulas. Thank you so much.
All right, Prince, thank you for that. That's Prince in Tzaneen. Let me take a call from William in Bloemfontein, also on the same theme. Good morning to you.
Yes, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
I just want to know, these ministers of ours, he was just a minister of water, and thereafter is now a minister of police. Why did he study all these police subjects to become a minister of the police? How is he working in South Africa? Is he confirmed to be the roles of South Africa?
I didn't hear what you were saying, William. I'm battling to hear you. All right, we seem to have lost that line to William. I think he was asking about moving ministers across portfolios. And if that's the case, I think it comes down to a decision of the president weighing in suitability, the ability to lead at executive level. Because at that point, it really is about executive leadership, setting policy direction, more than it is operational at that level. But intervening, of course, whenever you are able and allowed to intervene operationally. Let's speak to Putana in Rosebank. Good morning to you, Putana.
Good morning, my brother. The Minister Kubai, what more information does he want from Mkhwanazi? What more information does he want? Don't have the information from Signi Mufumadi? Don't she have the information from Zondo? All those reports are gathering dust there. They must stop treating us with disdain. What more information? Did she ask that information from him? Why can't he ask Patoy? Patoy told us that there are crooks there in prosecuting or NTA. What more information does he want?
Did you see that she then withdrew that statement, Shamila Patoi, the statement that said the NPA has been infiltrated by malign forces?
That.
Yeah.
I saw that, but you must take the person to his word. She told us. She can't reverse it. And by the way, Patoi told us that what do you call it? The NPA head of Johannesburg must be kicked out. She told us that.
All right. Thank you for that, Putana. We'll pick up on some of those themes. That's Putana in Rosebank there, saying that all this information that we are told will need to be investigated and more heard, more evidence brought forward. Actually, there's been a plethora of investigations that have come through that point to that information being available.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Been a busy run through Midrand this morning on your way down to Joburg. Let's get the very latest. There's a bit of traffic backlogging from Samrand through to about New Road. And don't forget, there are some roadworks that swing in around about this time of the day until about 4 p.m. in the afternoon between Olifants and New Road. So likely that may stay busy for a while. Looks like roadworks are in already between Malapongwe and Winnie Mandela. The N1 heading north through the Randburg area up to Four Ways is queuing heavily. Malapongwe Drive coming from Kaya Sand area down to North Riding. If you're joining from sort of Cosmo City, very heavy backlogs through all those faulty traffic lights down to Witkoppen Road this morning. And the Crown Interchange jamming up. There's a breakdown around Carr Street. So from Boysons or Monday Gold Reef City side, very slow getting up through Crown. Behind that, the M2 is pushing all the way back through to Joe Slovo Drive. R21 starting to slow down if you're on your way to the airport. Roadworks down by the Bupsfontein exit causing those delays. Durban, the collision scene on the N2 North at Spaghetti Junction out of the way. It's left a backlog though on the N2 from the M7 moving up through towards Westwood Mall, and southbound there's quite a queue forming as well. Looks like something's broken down before Spaghetti Junction, that queue pushing back towards Mgena Road. Cliffdale looks okay. Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg looking okay as well. Always worth checking those sections. And Cape Town, the M5 coming northbound, that's slow towards the N2 elevated freeway into the city centre's busy, and Marine Drive, which has been a good run until now, just starting to back traffic up coming through to Woodbridge Island on your way to town through Milnerton. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
My name's Kaylin Swart, goalkeeper for Banyana. Between the 3 meals of the day, my favorite is breakfast. I always have eggs. Eggs is my superpower. In the house setup, my favorite place is the chill room. I'm always in front of the TV watching something. That's only because I get so little downtime. I just want to relax on the couch and watch TV, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, you name it. We are the African champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take more of your voice notes and calls at this point. Let me start with this one. I think this person wants to respond to the point that was made earlier on about Uber Eats and the delivery of alcohol and the concerns that person who sent a voice note earlier on was raising.
Hey, Thulas, Uber Eats, even 360 or whatever delivery, even currently, the reason that people are not robbed is because you don't order a lot. There's a maximum number of items that you can order. You don't order more than 10 items or something like that. So people are going to be robbed of what? Of a pack of beer, 6-pack. No, man.
Yeah, no, I think I get the point you are making. I think I have seen 1 or 2 incidents at the point of delivery. So as the person is waiting for you to open the gate, I've seen 1 or 2 incidents. It's worrying, whatever the extent of it happening. I guess what I'm talking about is the disruptive nature of just the levels of crime. But the point you are making that there's a limit of how much you can order, actually, I think that's a valid point that does mitigate somewhat against these issues of robberies.
Hi, Thulasizwe and the SAFM listener. Thulasizwe, if you're looking at those most people who like criticizing Mkhwanazi, are those people who like afraid that they will face in jail? Are the high profile people they know like Mkhwanazi already sees something. That guy investigated before. So the people, they start to shake him because they know like they are on the line. But let here the Kurleni.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Now it's proven now that Minister Mkhunu, he knows Brown Mkhotsi. So there's no doubt about this. Brown Mkhotsi is one who's connecting Mkhunu to the criminals. No doubt about this. It's a shame. It's a shame for the African National Congress, my party. Samson Fosloras.
Yeah, Samson, thank you for that. And I think part of what I'm interested in now is there's an allegation that was made in the statement by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi that Minister Mkhunu denied when he was asked by Parliament whether he knows this Brown Mkhotsi. And now there's confirmation in the minister's own statement that confirms that he knows this person and this person is a comrade but not an associate. So I'm just wondering, if I've not seen the interchange in Parliament and how it played out, so I'm not casting aspersions at all, but I do find it to be an interesting line of inquiry as well, along with the other lines of inquiry. Let's speak to Sia in Durban. Good morning.
Listeners, thank you. Now, just based on what you just said now, yes, Mkhwanazi did present all of this in that parliamentary inquiry. And what Mkhwanazi is bringing receipts, is bringing evidence, is bringing a chain of a sequence of events that translates everything, even to someone who's not learned. You can actually piece this together. He is not making statements that are not substantiated. He's actually bringing substantive evidence to all those things. Ours is to actually act on what Mkhwanazi has presented and not to question Mkhwanazi's intentions or whatsoever. He has actually laid bare the rot that is happening, and that's why criminals are so emboldened, because they know they have protection from higher.
So to your mind, Sia, just very quickly, sorry, let me just jump in there. Your mind, there's no question that the disbandment of the political killings task team, for example, has links to characters such as this Vusumuzi Ket Matlala in the manner that is alleged.
There is no question about that, Thulasizwe. And Ket Matlala was actually flexing his muscle. So he told the minister, listen, my guy, these people are probing me now. He said they're probing political killing, but now they're touching something else. Now, the minister will be like, okay, no, you're touching my friends. You guys must go. That's how they operate. We've seen that happening before.
Sure. Wow.
With leadership.
All right, Sia,
So
let's leave it there.
There's no question about it. The minister must go.
All right,
together
Sia.
with anyone who's linked to him.
Thank you for that. That's Sia out in Durban. Let me speak to Mokoena in Rustenburg. Good morning to you, Mokoena, also on the same issue.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you realized that the people who took the decisions to dissolve the idea or the notion of allowing Takato Consortium to take over SA have been vindicated? Why? SAA is making a profit. Almost all the SOEs or are making profit. The mail is making profit. And it seems as if since that minister, the one that was trying to put a square through to you,
Which
died.
one? No. Mokoena, don't talk in riddles. Speak straight. Which minister put a square? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I'm listening.
The minister who died.
Yes.
The minister who died.
Pravin Gordhan. Call him by name, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You know. So since he died, the SOE there now seems to be working. And on the issue of Mkhwanazi, I don't think Mkhwanazi is stupid. I think he has exhausted all the means to make sure that the matter has been attended to, and it went into death. Yes.
Okay.
And I commend him for the bold decision that he took. And as South African, we need to rely behind him and support our country.
All right.
We can't have a banana republic. Thank you very much.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mokoena.
Good,
That's Mokoena out in Rustenburg there. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your robust engagement as always. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and you've been briefed.
In our top stories, Police Minister responds to Mkhwenazi's allegations, and over 160 people still missing after deadly Texas floods. Good morning. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has admitted knowing Northwest-based businessman Brown Mokgotsi. In a statement released by the Police Ministry, he however says the man is his comrade, not an associate. Mchunu has also denied ever meeting controversial businessman Fuzimuzi Kat Matlala. The statement follows the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwenazi's allegations that senior police officials were involved in corruption and interfered in crime-fighting operations. Matlala is an alleged criminal mastermind and tender king, while Mokgotsi is alleged to be politically connected. Police Ministry spokesperson Kamogelo Mokgotsi.
The minister has never met Mr. Matlala, has never